Hello, hello. How is everybody doing today? Happy Sunday and Monday. What do we got up here? George is driving. He's going to be listening to us. Carlos, good afternoon from South America. Wonderful. Brazil, Carlos? I think you're Brazil, yeah? Panzer Dan. Hey, everybody. John Fossey, greetings from Connecticut. Noisy Foisey. Sorry. Sylvain, hello. I hope you're doing great. I'll be cooking lunches for the upcoming week while watching the stream. Have a good one, everyone. Sweet. Thank you. I'm hungry. Dominic, hello from Georgia. I'm sure it is just as warm and humid as always, right? So we got here. Put a little something there for you guys to look at. Mark Burgess, greetings from the UK to all, especially mine. Cheers, Mark. Noggin the Nog. Good morning, my friend. Sunny New Zealand. Winter is clearing up down there. Arnell from San Jose, California. Okay. Silicon Valley. Good evening, Robert. How are you? TC, morning from New Zealand. Martin James. Hey, Mike. Hey, guys. Happy B-Day for yesterday. Oh, cheers, man. Thank you. Hey, Wayne. How you doing, man? Andrew Callis. Hey, gang. Good afternoon from South Florida. Robert Herring. Hello from the UK. Lots to learn. Yes, sir. Rhino 13. Hello from Orange County, down in the OC. Yeah, I went to college in Long Beach, buddy, so I'm hyper familiar. I don't miss it, to be honest with you, though. Peter, thank you. Appreciate that. Big 5-1. That was me, 51. It's a better number than 50. I like 51. 51's a cool number. 50 is just like whatever. Richard Craig, hello. How are you? Peter is in Sacramento. Okay, Peter. I thought you were in somewhere else for whatever reason. I think there's another Peter that rolls through sometimes. But yeah, Robert's in Poland. Peter, I thought you were in Europe for some reason, but Sacramento. Yeah, I've got my original Rinaldi family. My grandparents had immigrated from Italy, went through New York. Then when they moved west, they settled in Linden, California. So our family gravesite is up there in Linden near Stockton. So yeah, spent some time up north too. Basically California boy. Ricardo Abrantes, hello from London. Thank you so much for these. You are very welcome. Ventura County. And I lived in Camarillo for a while too. By the way, Max, my best one of my best besties had Brooks Restaurant. If you ever have lived there for a while, Max, and you ever ate at Brooks Restaurant, which was right off of I think Ventura Boulevard, or the main drag there, Main Street or whatever it was called there, the main one when you get off the 101. But anyway, Andy Brooks is one of my really good friends. The restaurant lasted about 7 years or so. Did a good run. Peter, I have you beat by 2 years. All right, I'll let you have it. Tommy McDaniel, hello, good afternoon from Louisiana. How you guys doing? You still have power? Okay. Is Ida's going to be a bitch? It sounded like it's going to be pretty nasty, at least from what we're hearing. Wayne's almost 60, right on. Yeah, I'm going to give myself another until 6-0, then see what's going on. I'm still doing this. So I figure I'd give RSP another good, 8-9 years, and we'll figure it out after that. I'm hoping I do well enough that I can probably just fuck around, build F1 models or something. Hello from Dallas. Mark, I'm so old. Greetings from Norway. Hello, Ivan. Juan Pablo. Hey, everyone. I used to be a big JPM fan back in the day. I'm not a huge fan of him running NASCAR and all the IndyCar stuff, but I watched Montoya when he was Hassel and Schumacher all those years. So cool, all these people from around the world. Yeah, it is one of the more enjoyable parts of this hobby. It's one of my favorite parts. All the friends I have everywhere, everybody you guys all know and everything. Manuel Reiner, hello. Ryan, how are you? Greetings. Guten Nacht. Manuel. Sorry. Is one of my favorite modelers, actually. So welcome. Good to see you here, man. Robert Herring, I know so many of us are in that 50 to 53 age bracket. That little 3-year window, buddy, that's most of us. That's the bulk of, actually Google will tell me almost down to the 9s how old everybody is. It's pretty scary how much analytics I get on the back end. We are the Gen X modelers. Are we Gen X? I didn't think we were Gen, but I guess we were Gen. I'm born in 70. I never thought we got a tag. I forget what we were, because we were between a couple of the bigger ones. Cool, right down the freeway in Oxnard. Yeah. So I lived in Camarillo just as you came over the hill. Once you passed the high school on the right, there was a development that had popped up. What year was this? 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. Yeah, something like that. I forget the year. Let's see, the young one at 35. Yeah, you are the kid, Panzer Dan. Timothy Wood, hello from the state of Maine, the blueberry capital. Rollout Commanders, greetings from Switzerland. Norman Gruss, greeting, another German. Okay, sweet. You guys are all relaxed after that lovely wet race we had today in Spa. Oh my gosh, there's no point even hiding that one. There's nothing to talk about. Okay, what else we got? Jason Gillett, we saw you. Making them scrolling back up. Make sure I said hello to everybody. We'll get rolling here in about another 5 minutes or so. Hans, greetings. Good evening from Germany. Okay, sweet. Tomas, hello. Yeah. Yeah, Max, I want to say Brooksy shut his restaurant down probably 2009, 2010, somewhere in there maybe. So it's been a while. It's been a good 10-year run since then. He's in Florida now. Tampa. Yeah, those of you in the hurricane path, man, I just feel for that all this. Hello from Charlotte. Hello from Charlotte. Charlotte West is in Charlotte. That's gotta be funny. I bet you get shit for that all the time. Latchkey kids. There you go, Peter. There you go. I always thought I was one of the first. I grew up that way. My parents were divorced in 76, so I was a latchkey kid for a couple of years till my mother remarried. John Barnacote, building photo and changes today. Yeah, that is a sad face. You get that. Arno, hello. Dan Dino? Hannitz has never got what you went in for. Okay. You mean Hannitz the store in the UK? Greetings from Norway. Another Norwegian. Welcome. Lostoff, they get enough of my money via the web. PTAJ's Tuna. Greetings from the Netherlands. The Dutch fans are a little bit disappointed today. Well, no, not technically. I just hope the race next weekend is just, at least we can have a good one. That's all I want. I want a good one. Hello, Louis from Puerto Rico. How are you today? Are you guys in the path as well of everything? I know you guys basically just get stormed on all this time. Yeah, we've actually had since our bad heat waves up here in the Pacific Northwest. It's calmed back down. The fire smoke hasn't really bothered us per se in Portland, but we're having a pretty mellow second half of the summer. It's supposed to get a little bit warmer, but kind of more normal temps for us. Pushing maybe like 30, 31 degrees Celsius next week, so it's not too bad. Yeah, the spa race was a bit of a bummer. Basically didn't happen. Well. All right, so what do we got here? Mark Schwegler, hello. Gareth Lewis, hey, how are you? Manuel Garcia just landed in Argentina. Good to see you on the Sunday to start my vacation. Sweet. Where were you traveling from? Are you in South America normally? You just going to Argentina for a vacation for holiday? So Robert grew up in Lostoff, and Hannitz was a little shop. Yeah. I'm thinking Hannitz, the British, the big one. Smoke has taken over Northern California. Yeah, the bulk of it is. Usually, so what happened last year was it blew right through Portland. We were like Denver this year. Pete Tui, welcome. How are you today? How was your week? Let's talk about. I just put him on. Just saying. Ilya, is this? Welcome, Privet. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit. I got to figure out what to do with this guy. But what is it? 12:09. We got give you guys another minute or two, and we'll get going in the series discussion. Okay, you're in Seattle. Okay, visiting family down there. Sweet. Okay, wonderful. Boy, that's a long flight. How long was that? 10, 12 hours? 2 days? I don't know what they do anymore. Hey, Mike, Vivian here, checking in from Virginia. Yeah, so Mark, yeah, he says correct on Hannitz. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I actually sell the Hysterex. So that's I've got kind of a deal with Hysterex, so I don't sell the Hannitz. Yeah, that's what I thought you guys were talking about, Hannitz, the shop, actual shop. I don't think they sell my stuff, actually. Yeah, that's what I thought. They're now. That's what I know them as. Hannes is kind of the big mail order, but like I said, I'm in Dover and Hysterex. My guys down there, they're my main ones. So I've kind of made a handshake agreement. Everybody else in the UK sell to is like a bookstore or a book wholesaler or something to that effect. But Hysterex is our main import through the UK. Yeah, not fun with Brexit. I predicted that a couple of years ago when that all was going down, that conversation. I'm like, it's just going to be a mess, dude. And it's just not been fun the last 4 months. Guten Tag, Greg. How are you? Yeah, Robert Herring gets his books from Hysterex. Yeah, they're they're in my top 5 for the last 10 years. Okay, the actual physical brick and mortar is probably, is it still an original? I've actually never been to Hannes, the shop itself. Yeah, so Mark is quite near the aviation hobby shop near Heathrow. Okay, sweet. Yep. I've been to most of all those things too. It's been a while since I've been to the UK. Ik ben goed. That's nice, great, thank you. Let's see. Yeah, no, it's my last UK trip. Shit, this is a while. I usually fly through London for almost everything anyway. I find from where I'm at in Portland, Seattle, that's kind of, we fly. If you look at the map, kind of where Portland is, we're an international airport on paper only. So basically, you go to Seattle or San Francisco or LA and then go out. But I find just for sake of doing all that, being from LA, and it sucks flying south for half a day, then going east. So I just go north for an hour, switch planes at SeaTac, and then fly basically over Canada, which is cool because you get this. And that's how I know about when you fly from the west of Canada, the northern border of the US, and then go across, you see the terrain changes. It's pretty impressive, but it's some of that stuff. Is it Alberta, guys? Edmonton? That's kind of in that little, just basically nowhere. And it's like all of a sudden there's this city there. Am I correct in that? Because you fly west east and then you hit the Great Lakes and all that. It's always a good trip. I always sit on the left side of the plane so I can see all that. Anywho, Hysterex is wonderful. Late great Lynn Sangster. Yeah, that's how I. So to tie all to tie that story together, as I've mentioned before, my early days as a hobby industry worker employee was with Mission Models of Brick and Mortar before they did their paints line, and then we were a big resin armor importer into the West Coast U.S. And so John Tamkin and Mission Models in the early days that's what we did in 2004. I just graduated college and I was interviewing with all the car companies, and I needed a job to pay the rent in between because they're really, really slow process. And that's how I got sucked into all this. And Lynn Sangster was one of our biggest contacts. I deal with his son, David, now. But yeah, Lynn was he's a true OG in the hobby in terms of brick and mortar guys. Yeah, thank you, Super Dry Beef. That's what I thought. I'm trying to, there's that wonderful, especially like if you get kind of when there's still snow cap on the Rockies and you get, and then all of a sudden it just like, from an aircraft point of view, it just like stops visually. And then it's just like, it's like the bottom of the ocean where it's just like, and then you just fly. All of a sudden there's this big city. Like, okay. And I always wondered that too. I always say this about cities in like Vegas and other places too. I'm like, who was the dude that just stopped and put a tent and go, okay, we're going to build a city like here? What? Okay. I mean, usually it's trade, but obviously it's something like that. But yeah. Oh, I've got my old Verlinden books around somewhere. Shep Payne's and Verlinden. I keep them mostly for nostalgia. I haven't flipped them open in a while. Bonsoir, Bryce. How are you? Okay, let's get rolling here, everybody. Yeah, everyone's having a nice day. Yeah. Also, early questions. While I do I'm gonna do a little bit of a monologue here to begin this stream, just to kind of lay the foundation for what we're doing on the demos today. We're going to talk about a few different things, but mostly we'll play with the StuG in terms of the actual physical demo. And then we'll switch to the Gundam weapons for the second part of the demo, maybe the last hour. And they usually go about 3 hours. So it's a mellow day here. I'm just chilling. I'm 51 plus 1 day. So it's just me hanging out today. And we'll talk about the Mechatro to open this up. And then we'll roll to the historical stuff. We'll go a little bit back over the tracks and wheels stuff, because we're going to probably do tracks and wheels coming up in the next stream. I might switch the schedule up next couple of weeks. We're doing a lot of book printing stuff, a lot of shipping stuff we're dealing with. So I might need a day off to do extra stuff for work for RSP. So I may not stream twice this coming week, or maybe alter my stream schedule a little bit. But Sunday for now is going to probably stick with it. See if I only 10 thumbs up. Yeah, come on, guys, hit that like button. Please do that. Let's grow this thing. We're doing real nice, steady growth on all the social media stuff. So everything's going fantastic in that regard. I haven't really put extra emphasis on growth yet. But I'm going to here coming into the winter holiday season, if you will, to put the business hat back on. Jimmy, jam that like button. Well, the west is near mountains and north is near woods. Yeah. So we have woods and mountains because I'm in the north and the west. Stanley George, hello, how are you? Dan Deneau says, coming back to modeling after years is a big learning curve. It is. A lot has changed in the last decade for sure. Goetta Scale Model Works, how are you? All right. So that all said, I did lose my train of thought for a minute. But anyway, let's pull this guy over here. Let's start this conversation off. Was I talking about something else first? My brain just went bloop. Edmonton Scissorhands. That's pretty good. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to mug off the street. Enough of looking at me. Yeah, this guy's cool. He's about 98, 99% done. There's a little bit of touch-up work. He's still taped to his new wood base here. And I'm gonna talk quickly about the mount system on this. I kind of figured it out for kind of future stuff, what I want to do with the mount and how I'm going to play this out. Pretty cool stuff. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's what I was doing. Yeah, questions. What's the difference in Tank Art 1.4? I'm torn. Okay, so I do the books, Gareth, between paint schemes. So I break down overall by the umbrella of the subject. So in case of Tank Art 1 and 4, they're both German armor. But because there's a lot of them, which is great for guys like me who want to build and paint and publish, I break it down by basically the paint schemes, and I just collect the models as I go. I don't really have like a plan for them per se, but what I try to do is, like, in other words, I've got a gray tiger in Tank Art 1, I've got a whitewashed panther, we've got a desert Panzer IV. So I break it down by schemes, and then in 4 you've got some hard edge stuff, you've got some ambush camo, you've got some Zimmerit, you've got a whole whitewash chapter in terms of just focus on projects that were kind of in my past, but they're still quite relevant, but they didn't have enough material to make them full-blown tank art chapters. So I've kind of collated those into a winter whitewash consortium, if you will, and it covers all the scales, the 72nd, 48th, and 35th. In the large whitewash chapter in 4, whereas Tank Art 1 kind of introduces RSP to the world. And so the first part of that book is about that. By the time we get to the 4th book, we're talking about technique proficiency and more specific stuff. So there's not a ton of overlap, even though techniques overlap across every scale model publication on planet Earth. So I didn't worry about that, like airbrushing and weathering and stuff like that. I went by tank camo basically. And I'll do the same thing with aircraft. I'll do like modern jets, and it'll be like Cold War jets, or it'll be like, Russian jets. And I'll break it down by paint schemes of Cold War Russian jets. And we'll kind of cover the schemes versus doing like all green tanks or all tan tanks, or all, like, how do I break it down? That's kind of where the division was. And I found that from working behind the counter. Like, I will find that there are guys that will just do a certain group. And then there were guys like me who like everything, but there are also guys who basically just build Shermans, or there are guys who just do certain types of, Gunpla, guys won't even cross over inside that world. So I've kind of broken it down so guys can kind of come and go as they will with the books. And then the SM books are per model. And that gives a little bit more in-depth coverage. So a Tank Art book will have about 40 pages, 30 to 40 pages, a couple hundred photos inside each to cover the model, lots of text. And then the single model books will cover 130, 140 pages, however long I want to go on a model from start to finish, and it's a little bit more in depth. I actually think the SM books, I haven't really pushed them yet in terms of what they actually represent to the hobby. So we're getting there as we've got a lot more printing. And when the printing catches up with everything, which we're pretty close now, you'll see probably a little bit more one-on-one of RSP product. You'll probably see edited videos of the book content and stuff like that. So. And they are listed on the website what tanks are inside each book. So you can that's how you break it down. That's the difference. It's the major difference. Okay, Jimmy Jam. Yep. Everybody good. It's pushing 80 people. Sweet. Was expensive last week. The Works Craft Store chain in UK, the Airfix Shackleton. Okay, that's not a bad deal. 30 quid. I always like the Shackleton, to be honest with you. I like kind of that interesting transition between props and jets. I don't know if I'll do 40K armor in the streams with Ilya. Not anytime soon. I mean, the streams are just ongoing. So if I get one in the future, I'll definitely probably play with some 40K. I'd probably start conservative, start with, something similar like an armor piece, and then roll over to something else. What's happening with the oil stains? It seems to be too creepy on the paint instead of blending and feather. So Dan, if you're still struggling with, because I think you asked something similar last time, and I also, Last stream was super chatty. There's a ton of questions I missed because we were talking about movies, and we had a really good time on Wednesday night. It was really cool. There's a lot of conversations. Always roll back to the stream that you were chatting in, guys. If you had asked a question I did not answer, hit the comment section down below, and I try to read the next day and answer you fully if I've missed it verbally. So Dan, I know you asked a few questions. There's a few answers in the comments in the last stream for you. In this one in particular, I recommended put a little thin coat of thinner down first, and then put your oils on top. And then that way, if they're not, you're probably too dry. You're probably almost too dry, which is fine. You can be too wet or too dry. So it's just, that's what the thinner volume control on the brush comment means, is that, in other words, you're controlling that. So maybe a little bit wetter application to get it to blend a little bit better out, given your temperature or whatever. And an RF stream with full interior off the web. Oof. Yeah, full interiors are not. I see full interior and it's like, like 2 models in one, like 3 models in one. Question. Okay, so we got that. And coming back to Molly. Okay, let's see. Making sure. Just want to get a couple early questions, and I'll keep going on this. Mechatro, I didn't know. A question referencing 4. Yeah, ask away, guys. Just put the word question in front. I'll try to grab it, and I will miss them. Especially if there's 80 people rolling right now. You guys are going to be start chatting pretty. Dinner's at the RV drive-thru. Hey guys, what's up, Corey? How are you? How's your Sunday going? Looking forward to the 219. Me too. Gonna be a lot of stuff on the 219, and that's so. Just so you're all aware, what I'll probably do. I haven't formally announced this, but what we're gonna do is this first group is the biggest group of printing we're doing, and then we're probably gonna pop out the technique guides just as quick as we can, and then I'll just take all my time and get SM5 and 6 handled probably towards between Halloween and Christmas. And see when they show up, and then that way I'm not under pressure because all the other books are done. I want to, bring my best of the best I can do on the 219. I'm working with a company that has done a ton of research in terms of historical references and stuff like that. So we're going to do some things, and it's going to be, how you going to say? How I want to say is, I'm going to, for published work that's not a contest build, it's going to be probably as close to the contest build I probably have done in the last. I'm still working on it, but it's going to be that level. But anywho, Mr. Wego. So weathering. This is something I've been kind of paying attention to last time in kind of recent conversations. Books and digital, probably not, Ilya. So as I've been asked thousands of times, you probably will not see the books broken down digitally. What you will see digitally is standalone content. And what I mean by that is if I do a future PDF, it'll be its own thing. That's a digital PDF, and that's what it is. Breaking down the printed stuff, I think is going to dilute the product, and it's also probably going to kill sales, realistically. Scotty Scale, hey Mark, how are you? Okay, I love the idea of it, especially as a mechanic, but it's so hard to display that effectively. Yeah, I always like those the dudes that do the layered displays where they show the base, the middle, and the top. It's always some cool stuff. So yeah, I wanted to I've had these I have those like shower thoughts, where you're like wandering around, driving around, and you have these like thoughts in your head. I'm like, I should talk about that. And I was kind of thinking, I get a lot of questions over time, and I was like, I need to probably regather everybody into kind of a basics of fundamentals. It kind of let's go through this one more time. This is episode 20. There's what time, almost 50, 60 hours of content now on the channel. So I did it on purpose. I pumped as much stuff out as I could, knowing that the second half of this year is going to be, printing. So I probably will have a sporadic schedule, coming up in the next couple of months. So I may not be able to stream as much or whatever, but I'll probably do more edited videos plus the streams. So it'll be kind of a mix coming up for you guys. But this is kind of just a recap of what's going on and with weathering in particular, because I think the biggest crux of the hobby across the board, from every genre out there is going to be, taking it from a paint job to the final version. It's probably the most critical elements in today's scale modeling past, once you get the builds done. And again, I don't think you really need to see me gluing and sanding and all those, even though we will touch on it occasionally. It's not the priority of the channel. It's not the priority of the company. I kind of leave that to you guys, learn how to cut your wood and glue your wood and put your screws into your nails in, and then we'll finish the cabinets together. Does that make more sense? This live isn't moving. We'll check back later. Have a good afternoon, guys. You got it, Corey. Yeah, it'll probably be 15, 20 minutes to talk about this, and I'll roll back in a little bit later. It's only 12:20, so we're only a few minutes past greetings. But anyway, what I wanted to do is really just focus on, planning out your weathering a little bit, moving things forward on a model. As you guys have seen through the live streams, what we've done with this guy, just looking at him on stream. So the various techniques, the various processes. Actually, this is double side tape down. Let me take this off this post. And you guys know me. I always roll a little bit slow in the beginning anyway. Oh, thank you, Tomas. I appreciate that. Two hands. Hello. How are you? So anyway, what I've got here is, whoa, we've magnetized the dude. So this company is actually an air freshener company. They're called Drift. I get them for my cars actually, and I've got like 20 of these little wood. These are scented wood cedar planks, and they've got a little magnet on the back, and there's a little clip that goes on your visor in the car. And I've been just keeping them because they're just nice little pieces of wood to have. A company called Drift. You can look them up. The subscription, I think, is US only, but you can order these for the house or for the car, and it's just another way to get an air freshener. But again, it's a little free wood base as well. I think it's like $5 or $6 a month that I get these, and I put them in my cars. I got old cars. But what I had done was, this guy, let's undo this guy so I can show you, because he is all set. So what I had done with the 3mm earth magnet, drilled those in there. The bottom piece already has a magnet anyway, so I've got metal tables. It's kind of funny. And so I just did some quick measuring and lining up, and he snaps down. And so the trick with this, real quick, is just magnet on magnet. If you just put one magnet in and hope it sticks to another surface, if the magnet's pretty big, it's going to be okay. But these are little 3mm discs. These are tiny little magnets. So you got to go magnet to magnet is what you basically have to do. And you get a pretty strong bond with that. As you can see, it kind of snaps into place. You'll hold pretty good. I mean, I could shake it off there if I really get crazy, but all that kind of stuff. It's just a cool little display. And all I did was sand off the top enough to get rid of the etched in Drift logo. So now I've got myself a little handheld base here for display. Kind of nice little wood base. I usually don't do bases, to be honest with you guys, but I just thought this was a cool way for some of the smaller pieces. So with that said, just showing you with that. So with weathering, just in terms of what we were doing here, a couple of major things to talk about in terms of like overall. Light to dark is kind of the trick of the trade. I've been pushing that on you guys a little bit, as we go. And we've had some good questions on that and why we're doing that. And the reason is light to dark, it's how it happens in the real world. So you are replicating that, which is going to give you a good result. And it's also physically going to be a little bit easier. And it doesn't have to be, this is light to dark with everything. This isn't light to dark with oil paints only or whatever this is. This is light to dark with most of your weathering, whatever product levels you like to use. And you will find a more successful and easier, more manageable process. Now, advanced modelers, yes, you can go dark to light and you can play around. But I think for guys, for those of you in here or here for the reason of like, I need to get better at this. How do I do that? What are the principles? What's he doing? Why is he doing this? It's light to dark is going to be a good starting point for most of you guys out there. And I say that just because it's not a hard rule, but it's a really fair, solid, repeatable, reliable rule. If that makes sense. So what you see here and what you saw in the streams was always, in a general weathering context of applying the dust coats first, which are going to be your lighter shades. And then moving up into the grease and grime. And if there's chipping on the thing, then, dealing with the chipping and those kinds of things. But your streaking, your juicy joints or any area of a model, whatever the subject is, where you're going to get the darker colors of the machine, then applying those on top of a lighter base color is going to be where you're going to have the most success with this. And then from there, what you start pulling into is the tints and the paint work. And so what I mean by that is if you look at this guy, all this stuff, I need a little pointer here. All this stuff right in here, all that dark oil, that's all working with the base colors. Now, granted, this was a colored model, but coming in here to darken and tint and all this stuff, that's all on top of the dust coats that were applied originally earlier. And so, but that's how you achieve that though, just the physical execution of it. Again, this allows you to build up everything so that when you put your final punch up in there, in terms of what I mean by punch is like your final pop of the darkest shade you want to use for that, that's now said and done and you can move on. So you're getting you're going from the lighter, darker tones. And then that way, with the section by section weathering that I like to promote with you guys, is you go light to dark in this whole area, light to dark in this whole area. You move up the whole model, and you continue and continue and continue these little sections. You can go back and actually, if you're to break that down and watch all the Mechatro stuff, you can see how I do that almost every video that we talk about. The only difference that we had was just putting the chipping down on the hands areas where we put the rust down first. But I've also come back in with the dust coats, and then I hit the grease and stuff in the same basic principle of order of light to dark. So that's kind of what the whole, kind of an umbrella painting and weathering concept. Well, I'd say mostly a weathering, but even in the paint world, if you're going to paint your darks, you're going to want to paint over your lighter tones if you've got multiple shades that you're dealing with. The post-shaded fading conversation is probably where that changes the most. But in terms of if you have to paint a red or a yellow or whatever, if you've got multiple camos, put your lighter camos down first, and then put your, if it's a 3-tone German, you're going to paint your Dunkelgelbs first and paint your reds and greens on top. If you're going to paint your Dunkels over, if you're going to paint your yellows over your greens and reds, you're going to have a more difficult time. So the principles hold true through most of scale modeling. And that's kind of one of the principal fundamentals. And it keeps you safe. If you get in trouble, if you start chomping into this a little bit and you're like, okay, this isn't working, then that's a fundamental you got to fall back on it, is going light to dark. So I got asked a question about this guy, but I think I'm probably gonna, I'll do these. So these are, so the box comes, so these are the kits in the same box. So this is the pair of these Mechatro models in that box. These are the colorways. You get the green and yellow one, and then you get the blue/white one with the green and whatever. And then this guy had the blue. It's called the power loader. So it's kind of like a walking forklift, if you will. Kind of like that in the Aliens movie in the second one. The yellow loader that they walk around in is kind of the same principle. There's a cockpit inside these guys, and there's figures that come with the kits as well. So there's a full cockpit inside, 35th scale. So there's a 35th scale seated figure that comes with this, or I think he might be he's a standing figure. He stands up in there and he kind of drives it like a pogo stick a little bit, or like a Segway a little bit. And that's kind of, I think, how he rides this guy. So in this part, will open up so you can open up and see his face. So you guys that like to do all the figures and all that kind of stuff, they're great they have nice little Hasegawa 35th scale figures. And I think there's 2 or 3 figures per kit. So there's enough for 2 pilots or 2 drivers. Because I went civilian, so we'll call them drivers, union workers. They're all snap fit. There's no glue. I've not glued any of these. So I could technically take the green one apart and flesh them out. But I did pop in. The wires are loose. They're just drilled in the holes. So they just hold them in there. But one key element with light to dark is if in a case where you have to paint your chips, I recommend get all your little bit of a dust work down first. And there's actually there's some faded yellows and stuff up there. You can kind of see the colorway, a little bit of a modulation effect, a little bit of a zenithal lighting effect. And then I paint the chips and dark stuff on top at the very end, just to build that up. Over there. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the blue one just yet. Juicy joints in the barbecue and waiting. Yep, I'm sure Corey's cooking up a storm. So this little dude over here. I'm still figuring out the stowage load on this guy. So again, principles here, same principles apply. And what you see here, now in this particular case, now it did happen on the Mechatro because there is a bit of that. I'll catch back up to you guys. Oh, hey, G, what's up, buddy? I see you. So in this particular case, where we go light to dark, it's designed intentionally to also create multiple layers. And the second big element to weathering fundamentals that I want to get across to you guys today, just in conversation, is kind of a refresher, reminder, if you will. Coach before practice. We'll start practicing here in a minute. We'll start the show here in a sec. But just to get this, especially to you, I know there's a lot of you guys watching, a lot of people, one of the keys is our layers. So when you go light to dark, what you can do then, because of the way we work with the hairdryer and some of this other stuff, is you can start relayering this stuff up. And this is how you get the depth to this stuff. This is really how you start creating the punch, the contrast, the depth of visuals to this, to where people are really looking at this going, what did you do? How'd you do that? I've talked about this quite a bit recently, is where, especially when I get asked like, hey, what do you think of my work? Can you give me some advice? Probably one of the top 3 things I see is that weathering in the general hobby is a lot of times it's one and done. It's like one pass and then, okay, I weathered it. Okay, cool, I'm done. And the reality is life doesn't happen that way. Machines don't get dirty that way. And I really try to treat this as kind of build it up over time, weather time, as I say. And it's not like you do have to spend time doing this, but you're weathering time. So creating the age of the vehicle is really critical. Well, how you do that is by layering. And so very astutely, one of the guys commented, you work in translucent layers. That's what I'm seeing. Very similar to the art world with glazes and stuff like that. And the truth is, yes, that's how you build up a lot of the translucencies to create the opacity, which is the more opacity gets, the more solid the paint color becomes. But you don't try to hit that at one time with weathering. So, because in this pigment conversation, again, with the StuG, when we went back, I did a whole layer of pigments on this, and then went back, did a whole second layer of pigments in another stream to layer that back up. So it's about 6 layers total of different colors and applications over the course of 2 streams. And so that's how you get the depth of a lot of this stuff in terms of all the variations and tones, and to even get on this idler, just to look at this guy for a second. Like I went back with white oil paint to hit those bolts to get that layer of white back on top of the worn chipped hub of that center part. And then all the little darker areas and stuff were added on top of the pigments to create the multiple layer effect. So it's kind of the critical element to, and again, if you remember how we did the exhaust system where we layered in the life color sets, come back in with the pigments, and then I've relayered a lot of the oils and stains to get the streaks to pop the whitewash back onto that a little bit, build that all up. And so that's how you create a lot of the depths, like this little the smoke candle holder here on the back. I think that's what this is, or what it's loosely translated into. Same idea, where you see the white around the bolts and stuff. That's all oil paints applied back on top of the previous layered weathering that I'd done earlier. So it's really subtle, and it can be as subtle as you want it to be. But that's really the 2 main principles of light to dark, and then layering and developing the processes up is kind of one of the big tricks of the trade. I don't think Zal is awake yet. I don't think our Singapore guys are actually. Oh, there he is. I saw that name pop up. Yeah, he says hello, Zal in Singapore. Welcome. So you're actually, I just want to comment that I thought, Zal, your Typhoon weathering the wheels and stuff, you're doing an excellent job. So it's not fun sometimes. Some of this a little bit gets into kind of the work mode where you're doing a vehicle that's maybe not the sexiest, but that big Russian Typhoon APC looks like a school bus kind of a thing. It's just a big brick 6-wheeler. But so when you don't have a lot of dirt in elements for a weathering principle, but the principles themselves still apply. So light to dark, and in particular with the tires, I think you guys were some of you were surprised. I started the whole thing was tan, and then we built up all the blacks and grays just by dry brushing and building that tone up on top of that, instead of going from a black rubber tire to a dusty tan look. So we started with the tans and the dust layers. But that's how you get the lower level colors into the lower level spaces, by getting the light colors down first. It's a lot easier to do it when you want to avoid trying to put a wash down on everything. And then what you got in here is the same basic ideas. So if I'm doing rush chipping, I'm actually putting down a really light orange, and then I'm putting in the darker browns and the darker rust tones and everything else on top. And so I'm still building up in a light to dark process. And then my final dry brushing of the lip of the rim and stuff like that, of the wheel rim, just hitting it with like a dark brown metal color. And then I'm done. The same thing with the ridges on the tires. I'm hitting that with an almost black dry brush, and then that's it. I'm done. Moving on. So it's pretty simple, straightforward process. Moves pretty good. Usually don't have any trouble with it. Efficiency, all those things handle pretty nicely. But even when we get to the track weathering, let's find the section that we actually did this on. So it's a little bit different result, but the principles still apply the same way. So this is, once you burnish a metal track or you paint a track, in this case, same general idea is to just get the color down first. So this is a painted vinyl track over here. So here you can see we painted the black vinyl track gray first, put the rust tones on, and then built up the darker polished metal pieces on this. And we haven't weathered this one at all in terms of getting it dirty, but the principles apply here. You get your base coats down, And the weathering is a light dust coat first, basically in theory, and then you start speckling all your stains and getting all your grime and grease in a real random manner for tracks to give it kind of that gritty look. But then you're finishing off. In this particular case, we sanded the metal, but you're going to polish that off with your final hot spots. So it's kind of the same general concept of light to dark, and that'll keep you guys safe. That'll keep you guys moving pretty good. And then if you don't like the results, just redo it, layer it up again, and change up your whatever it is you want, more lights or you want more darks to increase the contrast that you're trying to do. And this is kind of the lecture where it's kind of like just to reinforce these principles are what's going to pay dividends for a lot of you guys as you start really, really developing yourself. Because if you have that, you can see the brushwork happening, which is kind of the one-to-one brushwork. Now you can start taking these as tools for yourself to develop your own personal style of what you're really trying to accomplish down the road. And I can see already with some of you guys that I interact with a little bit more off of the stream, there's already your position is moving forward because you're starting to break it down to where now you can maneuver as the author the final end game. And so that way, when you're on the contest table and that's what we're talking about, is those kind of like, if you're a contest builder, if you're trying to move this to that next level, that's how you're going to proceed with that in terms of six. At least I shouldn't dictate that that's how you're going to. That's how I do it. So to share that journey with you, so to speak, because I do like to be that way where I'm not really dictating to you guys. I'm just kind of sharing, this is how I do it. And so I think there's a lot of good success happening within that. So let me get some questions and some comments out of the way, and then we will get dirty, paint some shit, as we like to say. Oh man, that was a good one. Yeah, I don't see my boy Mike in it. He's probably working. Yes, Peter asked a question. So you plan to do a plain art book? I plan to cover all the stuff over time. I've got another probably good decade of doing this, Peter. So yes, it'll all start happening. After this year, I'd say you're going to start seeing a little bit more diversity from the company in terms of product, what we're doing product-wise from the printed side of things. The stream stuff will keep it pretty varied. The stream stuff is a little bit easier to roll through in terms of bouncing around and keeping it fresh and, swapping from a Gundam and I do have an aircraft, the first aircraft project. So what I'm trying to do here, one of the reasons this stream is kind of crucial too, is I'm in the final stages of a lot of these now. So the Mechatro is pretty much done. I probably won't be working on him on stream anymore. She's signed off. I have to do here, let me just explain a little bit. So you see the blue pop on the feet. So that's where I had to handle it a little bit to get the magnet part done. I kind of did that post weathering, which was kind of stupid, but I also was kind of going along and never really thinking about it. So I do have to touch up some things, it's also kind of normal, but this is also oil paint and it will dry and it's done. So I don't have to top coat or anything like that. So I have to do a little bit of touch up work and he's pretty much done. I won't do this Mechatro anytime soon. I just kind of had him in. I just wanted to show you what a fresh, when you go from, raw to weathered, kind of a deal. Hello. I'm just fucking around. But yeah. Mechatro. Look at his bald head. But you can see in here all the various tones. This is, again, I put a little bit of dust down on the yellow and then I do the dark edges secondary. So that's when you look at this, well, how did he do that? I don't know if we did this little spot on stream or not, but there's a little bit of a light yellow dust in there on the front edge. And then the back edge is kind of warmer, darker, almost a modulated tone a little bit. Excuse me, same basic idea. A couple more questions and we'll get rolling here. Oh, what do we got? You guys talking something? Anyone have the glass files mentioned? There are available, Mark. Yeah, there is definitely. The razors, as they're called, the gun primer. These guys. And I think I don't know if there's any nubs visible anymore on this guy here. Yeah, I'm just I don't have a piece that I can show how it works. But basically what you do is when you're clipping your parts off, that's what they're talking about, guys. This is a glass file. It's just a different version of a sanding stick and it's very precise, but it also kind of polishes the plastic. So the raw plastic, so your starting point is a really clean, perfect surface after you clip the nub of the part off the sprue. And this is critical for clean builds in the Gundam world in particular. So it's a popular, not everybody does it, but it's pop. I actually think it up my game. I think I'm more precise after using these. I was very traditional, clip a part off this thing, take your knife and clean that little remainder off and then kind of sand a little bit. This guy does it kind of all in one swoop after you clip the part off and it's like, boom, done. So they're really, I like them. I think they're really nice. Yeah, but there are cheaper versions. They are kind of similar to there's a little bit of crossover in the nail work. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate you pushing that stuff. Yes, sir. Recently acquired all his books and going through. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get everybody caught up here this year. There he is, Mike. How are you, buddy? How's your day going? Mentioned this before in here, and I think I'm not the only one. I'm colorblind, so this is real dark art to me. Yeah, Mark, I'll try to make sure, again, it's important to me. Yeah, there you go, sharpening that tip. It's important to me, as an old dry brush, it was just kind of getting a little fluffy, to list the colors out for you guys that have the visual hindrances, if you will. And then to make sure, so you're always welcome to ask, especially Mark, like if hey, what color was that, or hey, what were you using? If I don't list it in the stream, oftentimes with the paint itself, I'll show you the label on stream. But in the books, all the paints are listed out in the books intentionally, and I do put a color chip with you so you can at least cross-reference, a name and that tone for you, what you see. It's not doing that. Yeah, I'll try to help you guys out. And I was asked that years and years ago, and I never really thought about that. And so I try to do that for you guys. Finally got a StuG D Franco going to North Africa. Nice. Yeah, they send a few down there. It's one of the, I forget, somebody made that actual specific kit, but a handful to get sent down to North Africa. The Ds are slightly different than the Bs. The C and the CD. So the short barrel StuG, this is a B. Actually here, I was just looking at this. That's why I know. Super fresh in my mind. Well, this is the old Storm and Drang, but if you have any of the Japanese, oops, my pages are literally falling out. So what I meant by next week, real quick, or next stream, I don't know when it'll be. I'll probably be next Sunday. I may skip Wednesday. It looks like a busy week ahead for me. We'll be doing the snow effects. So I've got to put together my white pigments, and I'll put my recipe out on stream. We'll do the stream. It's in Tank Art 4 with the whitewash schemes we did on the tracks of the Tiger 2. I did. Anyway, let's see if I can find that page real quick. So the D model StuG, C's and D's, radios. Okay, here we go. So that's it. Cutaway of the C and D. Okay, so the B model, you see right here, it's that little section right there. The way you tell is it's not there. So they've gone to a different opening sight hatch for the front. And that's really what the difference between the C's and the D's. And it carried over to the E, and then they went long barrel with the F. And then there's a G16 scale that just got released just got announced by Tacom, which is whatever it was. For modulation, the question, for modulation of the base color, do you do the light modulation during the dust phase to keep with the light to dark rule? No, because so color modulation is you're actually painting your highlights last. So it's a reverse process, Peter. Like I said, that's why it's not a hard and fast rule. But color modulation is also a very specific style. And then what you would do, your weathering, you handle your weathering in a normal conversation, which is how you tone that all down, is bring it back in. So I'd still weather the light to dark processes in the same order. For weathering, but the actual painting is you paint your base coats from a dark to a light tone because you're painting in the highlight, the light part, secondary. You could reverse it. That would be pretty tough though. That's a little bit more of a challenge on the airbrush side to reverse it. That's why you paint that way. But you're also tone on tone, by the way, just to be clear about that. You're not painting like a white over a black. You're painting like a dark green, like a middle green, and then like a highlight green. So you're painting up your tone, you're building up your color range of that range of colors. So it's not true. What I'm talking about from light to dark is like if I've got a light dust tone down, if I'm going to put, like if I put grease down first and then try to dust around it, that's really, really hard to do. So you're going to have a much easier, smoother time to put a light dust down first and then add your grease and stains, which is how it happens out there. So it's kind of an easier way to go anyway, because you get the actual result. A lot of paint brands and colors, if acquiring primary colors, do you recommend? Joe Castrana. A lot of paint brands and colors. If you, your question is a little broken up. So Joe's asked, Series 4 cadmium, etc. is a little bit less expensive than alternate suffice. I think what you're talking about oil paints, Joe, is just stick to an artist grade is kind of the base rule for that. Because they're going to have the cadmium is just what they make it from. Cadmium yellows, cadmium reds. Those are the original things. I think that's kind of the original ingredient is cadmium. But you're going to be looking at artist brand stuff. My pigment brands are actually a lot of the older original 502 MIG production pigments. But again, I do the same basic light to dark, so we've got the light, medium. We got this guy. It goes over here. But yeah, but I always layer it up light to dark in the same kind of conversation anyway. Okay, let's switch back in. Okay, take this guy off here. All right, so let's do a little bit more of the weathering on the StuG. Get these guys back here. And I will say here, so again, the same basic idea. I'm getting all the dust colors down first, and those little sharp chipped edges, those are the final things I do. So I'm working that spectrum color, the spectrum of colors from lighter to a darker, even on a colored part. So it's on the blue, but I'm still putting the dust around in the same process all the way around. And it's the same general principle as moving to something like this. So it's a very manageable, repeatable, reliable type situation. So all the dark rust tones on this guy are the final things that I'm doing. Whereas all the dust, all the faded colors, everything, those are the first things I'm doing per se. But color modulation, again, is a little bit more of a specific thing, but in terms of just a general conversation. All right. Model guy, yes, sir. Series 4, question. Did I answer you, Joe? I don't know if that answered it. I hope that, Joe Cass, I hope that answered you. Is it possible to do the models even if you're a color? Yeah, no, it's possible. So some of you guys may know Lee Lloyd. He has his son picks the bottles out, so they'll read the articles and stuff and say, well, he's using this one and this one and this one, and his kids will help him out. That's usually what I find is a lot of times if it's a situation where it's an older guy or dad or whatever, the family member will help out. Especially like a box like a Teflon is not fun. No, I know it's not fun. And that's kind of so the final stage of weathering, the fundamentals and stuff is that's where you've got to really have that one element of reference that is like, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. So that guides you. You've got to have that. If you have that one basic imagery to go, that's how that kind of goes. Got everybody out there right now. Okay, this guy over here. Okay, so let's work the engine deck here. Kind of move here over to here. And just get myself set up a little bit while you guys answer questions, or what you ask, and I will try to answer while I set this up. I've got another fresh palette of oil paints. This guy here. I went a little bit different in my spectrum, but my Winsor Newtons are always in the same spot. And then I went all my darks on one side. I turned and went all my lights and grays, and I put all my colors on the other side. Just changing my thing up a little bit. So like I said, if you're unfamiliar, we usually go about 3 hours. So I felt it was just important to discuss that kind of stuff. I know it's a little bit on the boring side, but it is extremely important. Like if you guys really want to up your game, really try to take it to the next stage, that's going to be one of those things that really helps you out. Because even when I don't, I do try to voice over as much as I can while I do that, or while I do this on stream for you guys. I don't always hit every single thing perfectly. Looks like we're getting a little bit of sun glare too. That helps. There we go. A little bit more accurate colors there. Okay, so we got all that. So we'll work on this guy for a little bit. Got that. I do have pigments. I don't know if I'll get the pigments today again or not. I need this little guy. I need a cup of that. Okay, so I've got my brushes over here. Got my eyeballs. Let me scroll back up one last time. Travis Thompson. The podcasts are a great addition to bench time. You're welcome. Yeah, Zal, you're doing a good job, brother. And that's okay. And it's good if you. That's why I tape shit down. It's good if you. Hey, what's up, Scott? How are you? How you doing today? Plastic Posse in the house. Yeah, if you guys have not heard that interview between Adam Wilder, Martin Kovac, and Night Shift. Night Shift, Adam Wilder, and myself. So it's a good one. Plastic Posse podcast. You can go back a few streams. I got all the links in the previous stream. Okay, just making sure. James Lynn, I saw that these two little guys in my hobby store recently. How I wanted to get them, but I have too many. Yeah, I hear you. What are you, James Lynn? Do you remember the price that they're charging? Mike, hope you guys slammed at work. Okay, yeah, be safe, buddy. I know you got your hands full when you say that. That means you guys are legit. Sorry, guys, my son was speaking. What was the kit Mike's working on? Mark just I don't have enough spare time to catch up all the show. Oh, you're fine. These will be up forever, so that you know what I'm saying. As long as YouTube's around and the channel's up, you guys can catch up with these whenever you want. That's a Mechatro We Go from Hasegawa, 1/35th scale. There is a 1/20th scale as well, a larger version. It's a single model kit. But these come 2 in a box. And then there's some other versions, but just eBay Mechatro and you'll get all of them. Or USA Gundam Store also sells them when they can get them in. They import them from Japan, regular. I think that's the only one. Yep, so we got that. I'm just going through last couple comments here. Kind of my brush. Oops, brushes. Get some tape. Tape the stuff to your bench. Because like me, I'm a little clumsy today. So I got a little bit of odorless thinner. And again, I prefer the odorless thinner both for quality and for it's a silkier, smoother blend. The mineral spirit / enamel thinners that you see labeled as such tend to be a lot stronger and just kind of don't really do the job the way I like to have the job done. We're talking on the finer level of 8 to 9 tenths of the effect. So you can get a lot of the similar stuff with the lower quality thinners, but the odorless thinner will give you that final squeakiness. All right, let's see here. Do you have any other final questions? Let's see. PT Cats. You get nanofiles for doing nails on Amazon. Yeah, there are usually cheaper versions, and that's kind of a hobby industry commentary / the scale model, the whole thing. There's obviously cheaper versions. Most of this is rebranded regular products. Hey, Brent, how are you? Oh, you're at a wedding party. Okay, well, I enjoyed your package arrived on my birthday, so I do thank you specifically, Brent. That was very, very kind of you. I've got some fresh candy. Been enjoying. You guys, yeah, he's watching the divorce proceedings. What's going on? You guys are talking about. Okay, Mark at Edinburgh Modeling Man Cave. Wow, wonderful. I wish I was in Edinburgh right now. I do want to make sure I hit Scale Scotland the next time it pops up. Great to see your weathering applied across multiple genres. Just goes to show it's university applicable. Yeah, and that's what I'm really trying to do. Okay, 43 Canadian. James says on the I don't troll. I troll him a little bit. I don't troll Martin too much, but James said that the Mechatro at 43 bucks Canadian. Yeah, that's why I said $35-$40 US. That's about what you should be paying for those, which breaks down to there's 2 inside the one, so you're looking at like a $15 to $20 per model, which I think is a great deal for how nice they are. Zal, no, I don't. Sorry, the modeling companies don't like me. There's my bench. There's my weathering. Cool. Yeah, I got a few emails when I started doing this on a pretty regular basis. You're like, bet those dudes don't like it much. And I've talked about this a little bit where one of the reasons you don't see them pushing the oils as much is because there's a very slow turnover in the product in terms of buying and selling. And if I buy oil tubes, you usually buy them once. You're not going to be buying oil that often. So that's kind of, I think that's part of what Oil Brusher was. You get a little bit higher use rate out of it. So it probably is a little bit more of an uptick in sales for that type, which is, I thought was pretty clever, to be honest with you. But I still think you should be putting them on the palette to get the linseed. Hey, Alex, how are you, buddy? Bonsoir, mon ami. Yep. Let's see here. Okay, so we're just about started. I'm enough of the bullshit, and I think we've kind of got a little bit of the conversation out of the way. I just wanted to hit that for you guys so it's on camera, so you guys can, sometimes when you scroll back through, you get kind of that monologue, kind of a refresh, et cetera, et cetera. It's important. Believe it or not, it's actually quite important. I don't do any of this stuff willy-nilly, so I just want to make sure you guys kind of get that same kind of educational process out of the way. Okay, so we're good to go. So we've got our section by section modeling over here. Well, that boy's dried up nice, and we're not using him. I don't know what that was. Get some of these brushes ready. So I like to use a couple brushes for color, a couple blenders. So I've got, because my palettes all kind of basically stay the same, I'll keep panned out a little bit for you while we do this initial stuff. So I'm in the dust tones, light to dark, same idea. Now I'm not gonna with this type of product or project. I'm familiar enough with how winter whitewashes work, but in my head, just so you're aware, I'm going for a look that is not like, it's not like a super, the mud has come up on top of the model as much yet. So in my previous efforts, I got the model a little bit dirtier, and this time I want to keep the model a little bit on the more of a pure whitewash scenario with the mud work, all the contrast, it all kind of hanging out down low. Yeah, Evan Panzermeister. I don't know if Evan's in stream. He's also doing some really good stuff. I found out Evan after the fact. So Mike's bench is so clean inside. Yeah, it's this is how I work. This is usually how I work. I'm a neat freak. Pisses off everybody, friends and family, and all my customers alike. Just how I am. My OCD on the colors, you know. I got a new vacuum cleaner for my birthday from my parents. It's like, what do you want? Like, I don't know. I've got all this wood floor to clean. So I got one of them fancy vacuums that does the wood floors. Yeah. So, and to be clear, in case you guys don't know, I use all that stuff for about a decade. So I'm intimate. It was the transition of how powerful the oils were that really made that transition from the pre-made stuff to this type of process. I was looking for something more precise. I was getting 7 to 8/10 of my results with all that stuff. And I was like, I'm not getting that little jump. And that was kind of really what pushed it over with the oil paints. And it was the Churchill Mark I with the 3-inch howitzers. It's an old project of mine, but it was, and I'll have to bring it. I'll have to circle back around. We're going to be doing a Cromwell, by the way, just as a teaser. Once this guy's done, the next armor project is going to be the Tamiya Cromwell, which I debuted in an early stream of future projects we're working on. And I think we're going to do, I've talked to some buddies here and some other things, and I saw some other work. And one of the things was, I think I'm going to do a what if desert piece for the Tamiya Cromwell because somebody else did a contour scheme on it. And I want to do a similar kind of concept. And I was like, I've got some colors. I've been dying to use some of these colors behind me. Really nice tones from mission models in terms of their World War II mix and stuff that I just don't get to play with very often. So I think we're going to do a what if Tamiya Cromwell North Africa. I think it's going to be a future kind of thing. Anyway. Okay, I saw something up there. Question, Mike, is grease supposed to be gloss? It's not supposed to be gloss, but it does have more linseed oil in it, so it stays glossier. It's supposed to look kind of like a wet grease, but it will tone down. Double side tape under the thinner, stop from getting knocked. Yep, there you go. Boop, boop, boop. Yep, that's what that is. There's double side tape under both of these because what happens, what you want is you want to have some sort of, because you're going to push the brush around on this, and this is really, really lightweight cardboard and stuff. This will just slide around the bench. Like it's just a mess. So tape this down so that it doesn't slide around so you can blend easier. And then so you don't tip over this little cup of thing. And you can probably use whatever you like. This is just how I do it. So I'm just not really, I've always done it this way. It just works for me. It's also very modular and mobile. Like I can come and go as I want. I can pull these off, put them somewhere else. I can do whatever. So I like the flexibility I get with this. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. So we'll do a little bit more of a wet application. Put some dust down in the corners here, light tones. Oops, wrong way. We want to go this way. Okay, so zoom in a little bit. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit, just kind of a lighter, it's almost a white on white dust color. Again, I don't really want too much of a high contrast scenario just yet. Because what I'm doing is now we've transitioned from the fenders to up to here. So it's going to be, I'm going to kind of just, in my head, most of the capture of the dirtier area is going to be down low as we get up a little bit higher. But what we can do will be the grease and grime of the maintenance part. So we'll get a little bit of that. So you're basically throwing your cutting mat every 3. So this cutting mat, yes, you're funny, Alex. The cutting mat you see under the thing is actually like a desk protector. My actual cutting mat's back there. It's on the other desk. I'm supposed to be getting a new cutting mat here pretty soon. Apparently, I've got some buddies sending me some stuff. I'm keen to see that. But I do. You guys know what the Mr. Clean magic erasers are? The melatinins or tanamins or whatever. Those little white kitchen sponge things that clean the surfaces off. I do come in and clean this off quite a bit. So yes. And if you know your StuGs, You can see this is, again, this was an old eBay model. This is the bracket mount for the tow cable, which has been busted off, and I'll probably solve that problem later on. I left it off for the stowage, so I've got kind of options for to load the rear deck up when we get to it, or at least when I get around to that part of it. That's what those little things are right there. I am too close. I keep bumping that guy. So I'm just kind of building up the dust around kind of the collection points of this, you know, the weld beads, the joints, the back of the hinges, all the little nooks. And that's a good reflection process of kind of how much thinner goes down. So pans are down, and some of you guys that are having, you know, those kind of things, this is kind of a good commentary on visual commentary and how much thinner's in that for what I would call a wet application. Dry blender brush here. Yep. There's enough thinner down. There's a little bit of, is that fuzz? No, that's a crack. So just kind of putting a little verticality to that. That's a slope back. And I'm just going to soften this dust edge up to the edge of the hatch. And I'll kind of work this section here first, and I won't really worry about this section just yet. I did have a pigment stain over here from previous work, so I had to kind of mess with that the other day to clean that up. And sometimes that will happen where when you have the model tilted on the side for the pigments and then something will fall down the other side, you don't catch it. So sometimes I'm not paying close enough attention. So this just gives me a little bit of a dusty distemper to the white. I think I could do this hair dryer. Yeah, there's nothing to blow off. Spin it out. Can I hair dry that? Just kind of put my hand over it. Yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of a glass file, a quick demo, so you guys can see that if you're not familiar. I won't do it today. I don't have anything handy to pull off. I did get some new Bandite kits the other day. I could probably start with some of that stuff. Yeah, so I did set up the cardboard pallet. Let's see, it is 1 o'clock right now. That was 9:30 this morning. So what is that, 4 hours? So it's about 4 hours juiced up. And that dark color is linseed oil. That's what you want to come out as a refresh. I'm just saying hello, Zal, keeping the cardboard fields only. No, yeah, fine chips are good for the Gunpla. Oh, yeah, what did we talk about? What were we going off about on Wednesday? Oh, yeah, we need a good Western. Let you guys go on that one. There were so many good movie names on the chat from last stream that were coming through. But you can see, so what I've done here, well, I got you guys little noodles going over there. You're like, what? So just in conversational tone, kind of the darker tones of the dirt and stuff in here, you can see the progression of colors as I go vertically higher up the model. So I've lightened the color spectrum a little bit, but what I'll do, go back to my color brush here, get a little bit of so that one color is a little bit on the dry side. Some of these, what you'll find here, let me just zoom out and zoom back in. So what happens is you'll see, even though it looks like the linseed oil, this is a black and an engine grease. You can see how dark the linseed oil is. That's how much there is. You can kind of tell these are definitely, the greens are much drier, but this is a basic earth, kind of a yellow ochre. This little bugger is, my orange and yellow ochres, they tend to be on the drier side. So I just take my little doohickey here and just kind of punch it through. And that lets you get the brush into the oils a little, because it kind of dries to a shell on the outside a little bit. So this is kind of just a workflow. Oh, I just kind of put that color right under my hand too. I got to be careful now. There it goes. So now I can get the oil on the brush. So as I'm doing, what I'm doing is I'm putting it in there and I'm pulling it out, and I'm spinning. Same thing. I'm not jamming that brush in there to flay the tips. So what I'm doing is I'm wiping down from the top to the cardboard, and then I'm rolling it as I go. So that loads it into a sharp point. I can see on the towel that's pretty dry. There's no like bleeding out, so I can get a little more thinner on that. See, that's what it looks like with a little thinner. See how that's how I'm judging all my stuff when I'm doing this. This is kind of the brushwork 101. So I'm just building up a little bit of a darker dust tone. It's gonna kind of be in this range right here of that guy. And so what I'm gonna do is, now that I've got my first layer down, not as heavy-handed, come in here and Just selectively apply that, almost draw that in. See how I've just the light's catching it just slightly. But once we dry that, let's see which one is my blender. This guy. So I put just a little bit of a hint of that darker tone. So now you can see you can see what the tip does, kind of just spots that blend out. So that's just me diffusing that edge of that a little bit. That's what that looks like. That's actually the light's catching that perfectly. So you can see how wet that is, or how dry that is technically. There's no bleed off, there's no running. It's not making the lower level any muddier or anything like that. So then what I do is I'll just hit that with a hairdryer. Turn off the switch properly. Boom. So now I've got just a hint of that little darkening around that weld bead to kind of tie those colors in a little bit. And this is just working again. This is working the color spectrum up, light to dark. Same basic fundamental of weathering here. Real simple. Just a little bit of and I'm just repeating this because a lot of you guys, this is really helpful for a great many of you people in chat as you kind of just develop this stuff. I know guys like Alex and some of you guys, I'd love to be watching you guys do this because these guys are really, really good at this stuff. Yes, Brian, that is a photo etch. That comes in the kit, the Tamiya kits, the Tamiya kits. This has a metal barrel. Has a little metal barrel, and it does come with the 2 photo etch grills. And to me, it does provide those for quite a few of their armor kits, actually, because I think the Cromwell even has a set of metal grills, photo etch grills for it. I would not build a model without it. Just like there's a couple like staples, photo etch grills for the engine are kind of, that's what we're doing. So I'm just putting just taking advantage of it right now and just kind of continually streaking just a little bit. So what I've done is the dry dust below, the darker tone there, that's just a secondary blending of it a little bit, just to give me a little bit more of a flow out of that. But because I'm hair drying in between, it's this continual protocol that is creating my abilities, or the ability of the oils to be worked this way. If I left that wet and wet and wet and wet and wet, I never really dried them, then this would never work. So the key elements to this are the cardboard and the hair dryer combination. And that's something that's I probably don't talk about that enough, but it is like, if you guys are struggling with certain things, that's one of those like pro tips. Okay, I've got one too many brushes in my hand. I keep forgetting which one is which. Actually, let's switch the gold to color. That's how I should be doing that for you guys. So the King Art with the gold, I'll try to keep for the colors, the actual oils. And then I'll try to keep the red ones, the low Cornells, for the blending. So that way you can spot those on camera. I'm trying to get a little bit more repeatably organized. But even when we started, the engine deck wasn't really weathered all that much. But we've already got some initial tones going down. I'm just going to carry this guy over. So a little bit more of your typical pin wash. Oops, did I not capture that properly? So you can see how, okay, so here's a comment. So this is a really good indication, real quick, another little educational moment. So here, this is a really like thin level of blending thinner. And then right in here on the hinge, see how that thinner looks right there? That's a pin wash amount of thinner. And you can see that I have to be really careful with that because that'll dry like that. Whereas this one over here on the left, the soft one, that'll dry out pretty simple on its own without too much trouble. But the one around the hinge, you got to be careful with. So you have to be aware of what you're doing when you're putting down. See how that looks right now? I actually have to make sure that that little bit of thinner does not dry into a hard tide mark. So I have to clean that up a little bit. This is just a soft little, oops, sorry. This is just a soft little bristle nudging of that edge, just to knock that sharp edge of the thinner down. See how it's gone now? So that's the workability element of the workflow. When you put down a pin wash and you get a little bit of thinner overflow onto the surface, you got to clean that up right away. You should not be letting that. I know it's been taught for years to do it that way. You're going to have a much better result when you go precise, small section on your pin washes and then clean them up almost immediately. Like, don't let these sit around, because you're just spending time cleaning up tide marks in terms of overall weathering. It's not fun. It turns into a job, and the results are honestly not all that great. I think you can do better. I think you guys can do better. Come on, guys. but that's kind of what that is. So this is a second layer to punch up the hinge a little bit more, build up a little bit more contrast. So that plays up to the fundamental conversation about layering. See how I'm just drawing that in there? There's no bleed out. There's almost no cleanup right now. So I've just made my life a whole lot easier. And that's one of the reasons I've been kind of teaching that a little bit is this makes you a lot more efficient, a lot faster. Especially when you have a lot, you guys have to go to work and stuff. Like this is my work, but I mean, if you guys have to like kids and you're driving around and whatever you got going on, there's just not a lot of time for this. So the process, whoops, I'm a little clumsy there. It's okay. But even that, see how I've got a wet oil down, but there's no bleed out? You don't see the reflective thinner anywhere. And that's also a beautiful thing because that's a very blendable spot. So I take my blender brush, just kind of jiggity, a little coffee shake there. Now you can kind of see, where is it? Kind of see the thinner. Come on, now it's off the light reflectable spot. I'm not catching the light with that because the light's down here. But what you do is you just kind of come in and you just kind of soften blend. You just do it on the fly. Get a little bit more of the model now. So I'm just working that hatch edge around a little bit as I'm building this up. Kind of pull that out in little tiny little vertical streaks towards the edge of the grill there, and then come back in, switch my brush angle and push it into the joint there a little bit and soften that. Kind of blends those two in there nicely. And what you just saw there is the exact same application process up there up in this little area right here, right in here, right there in that inner joint of the top of that shoulder there. See that darker tone right down there in the joint? What you just saw me apply on the StuG is exactly how I applied the oil on that same physical application process where I'm kind of pushing the blend out. So I kind of come back in. See how I get kind of that cloudy kind of, not like super streaky, but you get kind of that really interesting little effect. I don't even know how to describe it, but I kind of really like it. It's kind of that kind of like splotchy, oily look a little bit. Just kind of clean it up a little bit more. And so what I'm doing is I'm constantly looking at where the thinner's at to make sure I don't have any tide marks as I go. And I do stop and dry quite often with the hairdryer. That locks it in and I can move on. Now I can't flood the surface with thinner, not that I ever do, but the hairdryer, that's pretty much done. So I can start building up around the hinge there a little bit. So that's a really good spot to educate you guys, because that light is catching that thinner amount just so. Take advantage of some early streaks. I kind of do my streaking as I go. Sometimes I don't really plan in the streaks too much. Here, I'll dry this and change up the angle and you'll see what happened. So looking good, Mr. Carter. Got my Kaido House shirt on today for my boy Juna Mine. His little 5 Datsun 510 Kaido House cars. Just displayed the next one coming up. Okay, let me dry this real quick. Okay, see those streaks? So that's taking advantage of the early streaks. Once you get that thinner dried out, you see the color. If I wanted to, I can switch to a rake type brush. One of these guys, one of these flat ones. Just testing this a little wet. Let me dry that up a little bit more. What do I got? Very fine, cheap, and good for. Am I missing a lot of questions, by the way? I dropped that Western thing on you guys. I don't know if it took off. I love the precise pin wash. Yeah, I see so many videos, especially aircraft. Yeah, I saw somebody, the YouTube algorithms and stuff. Somebody put up some Hawk or Hurricane, and he did the sludge wash process, which is I do not like it. There's very few times where I would just adamantly just like, no, guys, don't do that. I mean, you can get a decent result, but it's just like, come on, that's what you guys thought of. Not to be critical. There's times when I'll talk shit, but I'm not trying to be that way, but it's just like, every time I see that, I'm just like, no, don't do that. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. I am not a fan of the sludge wash process. And the reason is, let me explain that. Let me back that up a little, because it is a worthy commentary and the level of that. It is a popular process, especially in the aircraft world, even the Gundam world too, the science fiction world, the sludge wash, and then wiping it all back off, letting it sit on the surface for a while and all that kind of stuff. That's where you get all the joint problems with Gundams, is that process of slopping it on, letting it sit, let all that thinner chew in, and it's a white spirit, it's an enamel thinner, it's just breaking down the plastic. So you have that, but also you're out of control. Believe it or not, you saw right here in the time I was babbling how easy it was to get that and how accurate I can get that and how original I can make this look. If I had just sludged this all on and wiped it all off, it's not going to look like that. It's going to be a much more it's going to be a simpler weathering element. And again, if you're just trying to get to 7/10, go for it. But if you're trying to get from 7/10 to 9/10 to 9.5 to gold medal, then you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. It's just, you're out of control. And that's fundamentally what it is. And I think that's one of the differences between weathering at a very top level. Guys in the chat, there's a couple guys in here that roll through. Manuel Reiner, Alex Benvenuti. I mean, these guys their precision level's intense. You don't get that by doing a sludge wash and then wiping it off like that, all that thing. And then, so yeah, slight rant, but there's reasons for it. And I'm solution based, and you're not going to get top level weathering by sludge wash at all. Creepy character. Who's a creepy character? Don't be creeping. What is doing when he's running his LOL? Well, let me go back up here. Yeah, it looks like I need to invest in cheap hair. Yeah, absolutely, Mark and Edberg, Man Cave. Every bench should have a hair dryer. You have a stack of, if you're going to get into oil paints like this, start stocking up on cardboard. I had to cut a bunch today. I'd use the first 20 cardboard slops I had. That's a lot of cardboard for me. $8 total, if that wasn't clear. George, what are you talking about on the glass file? Yeah, you can get them cheap on Amazon, but I don't know. There are, like with the glass file conversation, they are like sanding sticks. There are different grades and different grits, so they're not all the same. And I do like to support the companies that support the industry. So for me, it was I think I paid like $20 for mine. I'm going to use it for a long, long time. I'm fine. I don't, saving the $10 for me in my particular case, that's your call, but it's not something I really, but you do be careful with the Amazon stuff. They vary in quality, so you may get a little bit less life out of them, if you will. Why not hot air? Why not hot air with it? First off, Alex is like, why the low setting? Because that's nuts. It's like, I can't handle it. And the low heat is a little it actually gets pretty damn hot. Like if you hold that down for a little while, yeah, that gets warm enough. The high heat could hurt the model, could damage the paint, could do some. It's just too hot, too much heat. And you're just trying to kick down that thinner. You're just trying to lock that in, kick it down, and then get back and pull off so you can, when it's a workflow thing and I'm going and I don't have all this, paraphernalia, for the cam, I feel like a cam girl, like all that, like I got all my stuff and my toys. No, when I want to work, like the flow is really easy. Like that's probably 2-3 minutes of my life. And I'm just kind of dragging this on a little bit, but I'm going slow on purpose. I really want to showcase fundamentally with the reason why this stream is titled this way in particular is just to kind of really hit home a little bit kind of where this goes and how you get there. Like, how do you move from section to section, and then how do you move successfully from a pre-weathered section a couple of weeks ago? And this is the beauty of it, because it is really low stress, really low key, but I'm breaking it. I'm trying to do the breakdown, the sports commentary breakdown, because football started pretty soon. So you'll hear you always get a lot of football analogies out of me for sure. But it is really trying to break this down a little bit on the slower side for a lot of the guys here that are just kind of like, okay, how's he really doing this? The Wizard of Oz pulling the cape back, pulling the door, the curtain back to see the other, what goes on is this important little step. But you can see real quick, you know, how easy that was, how manageable that was, how effective that result is. I'm quite happy with that. That actually looks pretty good. It looks realistic. We can even zoom back out a little bit more. You know, super efficient, super chill, super low stress. You know, I don't see. We're talking about Unforgiven and Clint Eastwood anymore. Just trying to get you guys going there for a second. That was fun. That was fun on Wednesday. It was actually a lot of fun. It was a good chat. Really chill. So that's kind of the idea, that the weathering principles. And so this is kind of the first few layers. Put this guy down for a sec. Switch to this guy again. So looking at my palette again, here's the engine grease color right there. That's the 502 engine grease. So raw umber. So it goes burnt sienna, burnt umber, and raw umber. Raw umber and engine grease are similar tones, but the Winsor Newton is far drier of an oil. So when I want to dry brush a darker like edge of a metal or something, I'll use the raw umber. But when I want to do a hinge or something that like a center of a wheel bolt, I'll use a little bit more of the engine grease because it's a little juicier color. So you can see like tapping on the towel, there's not a lot of bleed out. So that's a pretty, and this is what we're looking at. So you can kind of see, there you go. You can see the thinner in that, but you see the bristles. See how the bristles aren't flooded with liquid? That's kind of what I'm looking for. So that's why it's the number 2 so good for what we do, is it's holding enough chemicals now that I could work with this for a while. I can get in here, get on this hinge, start drawing that around the part line separations there. Can start punching up some of these a little bit more. And you see the little bit of a thinner bleed out. That means it's a little bit on the juicy side. I got just a little bit of capillary action going. But you can see also one of the big differences, probably the most significant physical application difference of the RSP way, if you will. What somebody said, the RSP School of Weather, or the Rinaldi Studio of Weathering or something, Rinaldi School of Weathering or something like that. I always thought that was funny. Is how limited I do my washes in particular. And by that, I mean, just like, I don't put the pin wash over the whole thing and then come back and do it. Like, I just do a little bit at a time. I find it way less stressful. The other thing that I found too is as a model builder, when you get going, if you put a pin wash down and you forget that you hit that area, sometimes you'll come back and it's like, oh shit, oh damn it, I forgot about it. And it looks like a little hard spot or that whole thing. So this keeps me kind of on point for keeping my cleanup pretty good, making sure I'm doing my job right. And again, I'm thinking like contest level type weathering here. I'm thinking super precise, being patient with all this stuff. Because I'm in the mode right now. I'm actually in the zone while I'm talking to you guys of getting these hinges to look exactly how I want them. I'm going to rotate to the side a little bit so you can see that. So just by contrast, just by talking about, okay, so see what we got right here. So this back hinge here comes off of a slightly sloped engine deck. This brake right here goes downward. So I've got a little bit more of that's going to be because of the motion of the vehicle, all the things element. You're probably going to have a heavier, greasier element to the back hinges versus these closed up kind of hidden hinges here a little bit. So I've weathered them differently even though I haven't done the front side of this one, but I can do that while I talk to you guys, because what I'm doing is now I'm kind of looking at this work and I'm judging myself over here and over here and building up that repertoire across the weather. This is actually probably some of the most important commentary I could make in terms of how to really elevate your game. How do you really start kicking ass? Like, you get the fundamentals down, but now how are you going to put 5 rounds on target? Like, how are you going to do that? Because you're getting 1 or 2. How do you get the rest of them? And so it's kind of, this is that orange box commentary in the books and the orange verbiage in the SM books with the little header, the why. This is where it's happening. This is really the most more critical. At least I think this will help you guys the most, at least in terms of what I believe will be the one way to really jiggly, jiggly, jiggly. Look at the tip of the bristle, just kind of back and forth. That keeps that verticality going, but it's not like a full-blown streak. You can see the thinner. Okay, let's try that up and I check my work. And so now I've got a kind of a fairly happy I'm actually, I got to do a little bit of work on that edge a little bit more. This one turned out really nice. The one towards the fighting compartment there turned out really nice. Just do a little bit more. Need to tighten that up. See how that tighten that up right there? Now I got those little streaks to deal with. Just push. I'm gonna kind of push back towards the hatch. Kind of. I'm using the blender. The camera's kind of right in the angle. Let me turn this to do this real quick. Okay. So. Okay, see the little bit of dusty thinner, the thin, I don't want to say like diffuse thinner. See, it's not like wet, and that's kind of a crucial little element to the thinner part. It's actually almost drying on its own now. It's starting to, just a kiss of the hair dryer, just to lock that in a little bit. There we go. So now I'm really happy with that. So that whole development there, while I was talking to you guys, this is critical because, so what we had done is over the course of the streams, we've weathered, done all this stuff over, especially over in here. This is a really good spot that gets really greasy and grimy and dirty and collection. There's a little bit of gap in the fender, so you're going to get a lot of stuff coming up and around this area on a StuG in particular. But now as we kind of roll up, the air intake kind of blocks it out a little bit, so it's a little bit kind of cleaner over here, and then gets a little bit darker over here. And so I'm kind of, this is all premeditated out. And I haven't even talked about the fourth hinge yet, but I'm just kind of, this is how I develop my weathering out. This is how precise I'm talking about, because this is where you can't sludge wash this kind of stuff. Like it's just gonna look like poo, you know, and they're all gonna look the same and there's gonna be nothing interesting there. But now to me, that's a lot more of a visual storytelling. We've got kind of the reason why this one's a little bit cleaner, this one's a little bit dirty. That actually plays out to the viewers will notice that. They'll, just like your body language, everybody will pick up on all that instinctively. So hopefully that's hitting home. Is that working? Is that working? That's good. I think I'm having good conversation, but I'm just chatting with myself. So let me scroll down a little bit. Yeah, Mike's lurking and working. Now they're robbing a bank. Yeah, whatever, dude. He's doing some pin washes right now. So yeah, follow Alex and some of these guys. Alex, you put up some recent work that it just blew me away. I think you're jumped way up to the top, my friend. Yeah, I hope this kind of explains that though too, because I know we've had Alex and I, we're good friends. We've known each other for many years now, and we've talked at depth about a lot of this stuff. But he's also a teacher in still in Paris, right? So outside of Paris, in France, and we'll have really good conversations about this stuff. Yeah, right, guys. Got to drag my son off the PC to get into bed and take the dog out. Yep, you got it, Mark. Yep, you're fine. We'll be here for a while, a couple hours, another hour and a half for sure. But that's kind of, really want to push through that. Even that little, this is critical, because this is actually, if I'm going to put some stowage on this, but you want to have the underneath work, in particular, this type of model. While I don't really know my layout yet on my stowage, how much is going to show. You're better off weathering this per naked and then adding the stowage on top. And it also takes the stress out of like having to weather under stuff, which I sometimes hate. Sometimes with Shermans and some of the Allied stuff, you can really load a deck up on the back, or a StuG that's got a full loaded up, storage area. You can get away with that. But for this, I'm kind of doing some things, but not a bunch of things. So, and this is how I like my armor, because I like the mechanical bits and goodies. But that commentary about building up this weathering in here, light to dark, put the dust down first, simple, dark, greasier patches of kind of a brown, oily, grimy. And then, yeah, I'm just kind of looking at that real quick just to make sure I just making sure I like those. So I'm happy with my work. I can move on. So what I'll do now is I'm using now, and this is what I'm talking about, where I talk about low stress. One of the key elements to this And this is the part I actually really, really like. This is the part that's formatively changed my own personal work, is the fact that I could actually stop. I could leave, I could come back tomorrow, next day, a year later, and I could work this. And you saw that, remember that brush stroke on the Mechatro dudes? The Mechatro dude. You dudes remember that stroke? Just crack myself up. But I had joined that hatch line with the oils, and I think I had done the left side 3-4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. And in one brush stroke, I had come in here and laid in the right side and lined it up with the left side, and it looked like you couldn't tell. And I knew it when I saw it. Boom, done. And that was like that teaching moment to really get home that's there. You guys worry like, well, how is this going to look as I move on? Well, from a like planning process, mental process of how that's going to look. I've got all this work done in here on these hinges, and it's super simple. I know I'm beating this to death, but it really explains at the heart of this how you develop this out versus some of the other more traditional processes, how I'm developing this out, I should say. So this gives me a guide to know how strong or how weak I want to make this weathering, how strong or how weak I want to make this weathering. I've got this weathering over here. How strong or am I going to make this weathering? So now I've already started to build up kind of a roadmap. Okay, I've got reference points now. I've got waypoints in my map of navigation to figure this out. So my stress levels are dropping way down. That first initial one's it is a little bit more intense. You're like, oh shit, it's a blank canvas. It's that way with everything creative. So but now as I've got kind of past that first, that's why I sort of roll slow with you guys, because I don't want to just like jump on this and start messing this up and going too crazy. And I'm like, I'm out of control. And then I'm not teaching you properly. And then it doesn't look good. And nobody's happy because I'm pissed off. You're pissed off. I want my money back. So anyway, hopefully that kind of explains that a little bit. What I do need to do is I do need to tilt up a little bit so I can see what that looks like under the casement a little bit. Casement. The upper hole. So I can build up, there was dust down there. We can build up some of around the intake grill a little bit more. Kind of a middle brown tone I'm putting down. So I'm trying to maintain my discipline with this. It is a lot of fun, and it is really easy to kind of start overdoing this, especially on a stark white model. You know, the whole adage, less is more and all that kind of stuff that, you know, some people don't like. Less is less. Yeah. But the mental aspect of less is more. So I'm getting a little bit of thinner bleed out on these kind of blank surfaces. So I'm just kind of taking my time to clean those up. Off. I always forget that the lazy Susan here spins the model out of camera. See how I just kind of brush center out. It just kind of knocks that down in there. Make sure that's nicely blended. Pop a hair dryer real quick. It's a little less cumbersome without the stuff in the way, but we're doing okay today. I'm managing my yoga poses quite well. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is just, it's a little bit in shadow. It's actually one of the harder parts of a StuG to weather is kind of up in that, underneath that little bit. I don't want to get too crazy, but put a little bit, kind of a medium dust color up in there as I go a little bit to the left. So you can't really see that. I can barely see it, to be honest with you. I'll switch into the blender and just do a little bit of pulling that out, just getting a little bit of that verticality. And you'll get that just from the motion of the vehicle. You know, this is as it's built up just from it driving around. It'll start to create kind of the physical. So while I've got a little bit of thinner down, see, this is kind of playing with the wet application. I'm doing this on the fly. I'm taking advantage of it a little bit, kind of stippling some of the color. I've got a little bit of that dark color left. It's kind of an underlay, a little bit in the light to dark, kind of just a hint above a light, if you will. And then I take my little, actually, I'm needing to switch to this, my little Jimmy Jam here. This guy, my favorite of favorites. It's been with me from the start, boys. So there's no thinner on that brush. I'm just kind of tapping those areas. I want that kind of cloudy diffuse. I want that kind of cloudy diffused. You can see those little spots kind of bled into the whole thing, which is, I just want a little bit of discoloration in there. And that's super subtle little effect, because I'm trying to be subtle on the white. Like, I'm intentionally trying to be as subtle as I can be. Oops. That's why you don't do that. It just blows everything, and it's also too powerful. It starts blowing all the stuff off the desk. Yeah, so see, I got a little bit of that color discoloration kind of up under the casement there a little bit, so I'm working that in. Now I can come on and come onto that hinge itself. Just got down for a sec. I can go a little bit darker in my tones, a little bit more into the browns and grease tones a little bit. Load that brush up real good. It's a little too wet, too much thinner. Come back in and put a little bit more oil down. So that's how I knew that when I put the tip of the brush down to the hinge, not a lot of paint transferred over. So just building that color up real slow, real gentle like. I'm in no hurry. And I think some of that too, in the commentary and the sled wash and stuff, there is kind of this premise that you've got to hurry this stuff. One thing I found from reading Jackie Stewart's books, the Formula One driver, is slow is fast, smooth is fast. You build up speed by being efficient with this stuff versus actually trying to hustle. And I think that is, whoops. Okay, so there's a classic boo-boo. So swap to the blender real quick, which is this is a Bob Ross. We have to use this, so to speak. I'd hit the thing and jam the brush in. So I'm just going to carefully pull the back edge of that out. Knock that guy down a little bit. Tilt up the other way. And that's okay. I don't mind this at all. Just answer the question of which one's going to be a little bit on the stronger side in terms of weathering. So now I'm just gradually blending it. There's a hint of oil color in that blend there. So the left side of that hatch, see how the left side of the hatch slightly tinted a little bit darker? So I'm going to repeat the process. I'm trying to get the tip angle just correct so it's in the right motion. Cut this down a little bit. So I'm just, you can see how I'm blending just in the hatch itself. So I'm using the shapes to work with a little bit. So that's how wet that was. To clean that up, see how I did not flood the surface? That's a critical like blending process right there, where you can control that and create something nice out of that when that kind of stuff happens. Hitting all this stuff. You can see my streak is slightly crooked. I blame that on the camera because you hold on here, but we can tighten that back. I'm just going to straighten out just a little bit. And that's just my OCD. It was probably fine. It's a little bit, so the angle there a little bit straighter. Dry that back off again. I think you understand more than you lead on, Alex. I think you actually understand this quite a bit. There's probably just a hint of confidence between understanding and execution in those moments where you start putting this down because you want to excel. There's the pressure, the self-pressure of all that comes with, wanting to be better at all this stuff. So truth be told, from what I'm seeing from my view, is I think your understanding is really coming through. Those Japanese pieces were in particular quite nice. So I'm just kind of continuing on. I love it when it comes off just like that, where it's not really capillary action, but it's not really a dry brush. It's kind of there's a little in between phase. It's like just I'm almost drawing the grease and grime on this guy. And if you have an area that is too much contrast, even this streak is kind of powerful. I'm kind of just leaving it a little bit because it does add, there is a, kind of that element to it a little bit. You can cut this, you can kill that down by building up the contrast around it because it'll visually start reducing its impact. Right now it looks really powerful because there's not a lot else around it. So as I build up some of the other colors around this hinge here, that thing will visually start to get smaller and smaller. Kind of it's a trick of the eye, so to speak. Because it looks all crazy because I don't have any other weathering in here in terms of like the panelings and stuff. So we can use that streak point as kind of, so you can see how the light catches the thinner, but see how manageable that size is of the pin wash. And I'm just kind of drawing that back down into the line, into the panel line itself. Gives me a little bit of streaks on the edge, kind of like where the fingers. I'm kind of adding on as I do that right there. This kind of adds back on some like where the if that hatch is open and pointing vertical, that the mechanic will will grip that like that. It's kind of what I'm doing right here. Just using the bristle tip just to kind of. But you can see how that, even though the panel, well, it looks a little bit stronger on camera. It looks more even on camera, but there's a little bit of a lighter area in here in the panel, in the panel line. And same thing over here. So that streak would kind of bleed into that, putting more grease down in that area anyway. So I'm just kind of using that because there's a little bit, even though there's a little bit of it's a flush surface. There's, when a straight panel ends, that joint there will catch color in dirt and dust, and you'll get a little bit of that discoloration. So I'm just kind of using that right now. See, there's just starting to dry into a tide mark. You see that little edge there a little with the thinner? So I'm going to have to dry that pretty quick. Just trying to draw some special effects, kind of so you get a little bit of kind of cross hatch it a little bit to get kind of just an indication of human interaction. Because I think that's probably the most underrated part of weathering is human interaction. Let me try this. Okay. It should have killed all the thinner. No, not quite. It's probably a little wetter in the panel. Okay, here. So now it's not. So when it's doing this, where it's like you still see the sheen of the thinner, and come in with the blender brush. Jiggity, jiggity, jiggity it. Diffuse it out. See how I diffuse that out right there? The train agrees with me. There it goes. Starts to cut that down. There's a little bit of a tide mark right in there. And that's because I was just a little too wet. But there we go. Okay. The rest of that will dry out on its own. I'm not super worried about that. So that's how I start to build in that kind of weathering over that panel there. Telling the story as I go, kind of working my way around, real precise, real slow. And see how this is starting. It's starting to look pretty even. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where this one here looks a little bit, that streak looked a little strong. So by weathering around it, you start to cut it, start to knock it down. This kind of area in between the hatches on this side, between the hinges on this side, I can pump up now. And by doing this here, this will build up a little bit more asymmetrical weathering contrast between the two sections, between the left, the upper front part and the back part of the hatch, the engine hatches. So I'm just kind of same kind of coffee shake with the tip of the bristle there, diffuses that out. So this is where Panzer Dan was asking where it's not blending or drying. That's kind of dried on its own, and my blender brush was almost too dry, so I wetted that back up, a little bit of thinner on that. See how it kind of just wiped it all away real quick? And I'll dry it and rechange the angle for you guys. So I built up the contrast in this area to provide a more visual interest through here, so that there's more of a visual change through that. So that the back of this hatch here is a little bit on the more, and I kind of knew that was going to be the way it was going to go, which is fine because that's kind of the natural inclination of where it all happens on these things. All right, let me catch up to you guys. I'm missing all the cards. I see a bunch of stuff and I'm missing all the things. My chat is stuck up a few. But anyway, okay, so let's scroll down here a little bit. Where we go? We'll go back up. Question: have you ever need to repaint a section because you're too far down the rabbit hole? Not really, because I'm so in control, Dan, to be truthful. And that's one of the strengths of this, is that it's really hard to, unless you just go crazy with this, like I'm in control. So does that make sense though? Because like you can see how much control I'm in right now. If I start slopping shit on there, then I've got to have a reason for that. Like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you putting on all that junk? So to get out of control means there's got to be there's an in-betweener in there where you're doing something you probably shouldn't have done to begin with. So this is what I'm talking about, where I'm so in control of this. That situation almost never happens because I've buffered in, kind of an automatic checkpoint. Like I'm always hip checking myself. And I'm talking about it as I go, but as I do this on the fly, it's the same idea. I'm going hinge by hinge and I'm checking myself out. Like, okay, that one looks good. That one looks too strong. Now that all three of the four, the four of them, this little first part has to be finished, the front part of this guy. But I'm checking myself as I go, and that's a critical element to why you don't get yourself in trouble with this. Which is one reason I really like. That's why it's low stress, because I'm putting down so little, I don't really get myself in trouble, if that also makes sense. Ton of patience. Yeah, it's a big boy. Weighs almost 10 pounds at this point. What are we talking about? Puppies? Yeah, my brother got a puppy too, 16. Oh, wow, not for me. Yeah, I'm with you. No 16. I'm just not anti-16, but it's just not going to happen. KV's yummy. Let's see, scrolling back up here. Hey, Forrest, how are you? Darkest Western ever, Unforgiven, but a top 10. Oh, God, Unforgiven is probably top 3 Western of all time. It's fantastic. Hope it can be applied to aircraft as hence easy panels and landing. Yep, absolutely, Arnell. Mike, seems like you don't need to wait a while to blend in stream. Nope, I usually go on. I'm actually slow because of the stream. Like I'm trying to educate at the same time and really hit certain critical points home, which I feel will help. You can see how we bumped up that lower part there. So now I've got a little bit more contrast built up. And so that's kind of how that all played out. Like I started in one spot, I worked my way around, got the other stuff going, looking how I wanted it. And then as I evaluated that, I'm like, well, I can actually pump a little contrast down on this section here to kind of give this whole section just a little bit more love overall, but I still have to finish all this over here, but I've got all this to guide me. So it's all working pretty well. And what I truthfully feel is kind of a nice, and we haven't even got down to the lower access points for the drivetrain. I think that those are transmission. Nope, it's not transmission. This is engine, tranny's up here, transmission's up there. And I forget what these two are, probably just actual secondary access points, I'm guessing. I forget what's under here because that's the idler wheel in there and the exhaust system and stuff. Probably the back half of the motor access, what that is. Yeah, basically in Arnell to the aircraft guys, and this is probably way too dirty for an aircraft, but the same basic principles apply. And then with aircraft, what you can do also is a little bit more tone on tone in terms of like you've got your base colors down and you can work with kind of darker shades of those base colors. In other words, you're not putting like grease as much grease now, physical grease. Whereas this is kind of a dirty, greasy. These are all lubed up and the engine hatches are open and they're working on this quite often. These things have to be, these are high maintenance engines back in the day. Which is why today they have the whole thing just open up and they just pull the whole thing out now because they get tired of doing it that way. Okay, so what do we got here? It needs to click. It needs to click really. Yeah, it does. And you'll have the aha moment for most of you out there listening. Like Panzer Dan, I don't think you've had your aha moment yet, but it's coming. Yeah. And so with open hatches too, what you'll find is what you're seeing me do here is when hatches are open, the hatches themselves on the upper part is going to have a different weathering because they're walked on mostly, or they're stuff's going on when they're closed and they're walking around them and doing stuff. I don't play into that too much of the boots and the scratches. I kind of imply it, but I don't get too crazy with it. One, because there's honestly, there's not a lot of good photo references of those effects for me to really build up the repertoire with it just yet. It's one of those kind of hidden, what's really happening with the hobnails on the painted hatches and stuff like that. So this kind of scuffy paintwear kind of implies that. But what I do know is that when those things are open, all the edges of those get dirty and grimy because the dude's standing in there, or multiple guys are sometimes standing there, or they're kneeling over that. And that's where all the scuff marks, the oils, the blended in grease and grime of the hands all happens on the edges of these things because the hatches are open, they're out of the way. So that's kind of, and that's why you've got kind of the central part for some of those, around here. And the same thing for the commander hatches up in here. We'll do the same similar idea, but it'll be less intense because it's not an oilier or greasier situation. It's more of a discolored paint situation up in here. So we'll be able to change it up by looking at this. So it's a good way to start. That's also, I didn't really mention this, but also working your way from the bottom to the top is also a pretty safe way to go in terms of fundamentals of weathering. Like I find it easier to go up to top, bottom to top versus top to bottom, especially with things like robots that have the high verticality. I go working my way up from the bottom, even though typically I will say as a disclaimer, what I do typically, zoom back up, buddy, is all this. I did the pigment work on stream because it was just effectively a good time to showcase it to you guys. But what I will typically do is the whole upper part of the model first, like this, what you're seeing here. And then knowing I'm going to come back in and do the pigments kind of towards, just because pigments are messy, you don't want to be touching them and running into danger of bumping into them or jamming them, or, then you got to redo them. So I tend to do those towards the end, just out of like a workflow situation. And that's the goal, Peter, is I'm trying to tie in both what the writings and the books are about, because you'll reread this quite a bit. Principles of weathering, or at least my principles of weathering, and how to achieve what's going on. Because I know, even Alex, when we first started talking to each other years and years and years ago, like where he was and where he's now, and he works with a bunch of the Spanish guys over there overseas in Europe and stuff like that. So it's, his own growth path is something, to go back and look and see, but his learning curve, he's now at the top part now, and because he's been really studying a lot of this stuff that we talk about. Not just me, but you look at StuG and some, look at manuals. I don't know if Manuel, if you're still in there, Manuel, I hope you're doing well, buddy. Manuel Reiner. These are Larry Russo. How are you? You're late. You're fine. We're good. We're just doing some OPR on the deck, on the engine deck. Model guy. Oh, I see. Well, I usually shoot at 100 ISO. Yeah, I usually shoot at 100 ISO. Are we talking photos? I'm glad you're well, Forrest. Model. Okay, we got some photography stuff happening. Hold on, let me scroll back. Stream 20 Mike is attacked by I'm attacked by my studio every stream, dude. You guys see how you can see I've got like everything's right in my way. Yeah, it's no big deal. I'm used to it. It's a little frustrating. The thing I've actually I did get some Amazon gift cards. I will be buying some new paraphernalia to put the mounts on. That I found this one I think is a better mount that I can put on the other table so it doesn't shake at all, and then I think it will hold all this even stronger. They're stronger construction. These are these little photo arms, and they just you breathe on them and they move, even though this is on a tripod off of the table. When I first had the camera on the table, when it was attached to the table itself, it literally just all the time because I'm bumping it. That's actually one of the harder things to deal with is the camera shake. Okay, how do you fix that? So yeah, all this is off. There's a second table behind my table. It's where the computer's at. It's where the lights are mounted to, or everything's mounted to. So I saw something about kelvins and stuff like that in there. Weights are almost 10 pounds. Oh gosh, shows good before and after weathering. Look at the clean hatch. Yeah, so this is, zoom back in here. Yeah, kind of a before and after. But even in here, we haven't even touched that spacing right in here yet. I mean, you can see by weathering all this other stuff how it kind of builds a visual spectrum here where, okay, well, how dirty do I want to get this? I kind of like what I'm seeing, so I probably don't have to weather this area too much because I've got some good weathering around it. And that's a checks and balances of kind of keeping, there's a lot of conversation about composition, weathering. Like if you ever listen to Mario Wien's demos and seminars and conversation, in his writings, he talks about a triangular composition where you're moving and that's what I'm doing. I'm forcing you to look around this. I'm moving your eye around as the author. That's why I use that word. Is just like with words, I'm trying to get you, the viewer, to do certain things for me. Like it's an actionable process. So that's what weathering, when you talk about weathering, is when I talk about it as storytelling, as weathering time, layering, all these things, is what you're trying to do is move the viewer's eye around a little bit. And like on Zao, like on your Typhoon, you did a really good job with the tires where you've scuffed them up enough where they're interesting from tire to tire. So my eye is moving across the base of that now. And then I move up and over to the top, and you've got some panels kind of discolored and stuff. So now my eye is starting to do some stuff. And now I'm interested as a viewer. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because it's a box. You're like, dude, not a lot you can do. I mean, there is, but there isn't, especially as a new modern vehicle, you have to really kind of project out a little bit. Hopefully, is that starting to answer? I know, Dan, you've had some really good questions, man, to be honest with you. I think you asked really smart questions. So model guy, mine are at 55 Kelvin, 5500, but I'm getting a lot of noise. Okay, so ISO 200. Yeah, drop your ISO down to 100. Okay, noise. Okay, yeah, yep. Pause in the moment in the camera conversation. The reason you have a lot of noise is you're probably shooting at F18, F22, F32, F28, all that bullshit. It's been the curmudgeon of the hobby. It's just a grouchy little angry, noisy revelation in truth. You want to be shooting like F11, F12, F8, F9. That's how you get sharp, crisp, in focus photos. Don't worry about that. We spend too much time as a hobby community, in my personal opinion, of worrying about the blur and the depth of field on the back edge of a model, where the focus of the photo is this right here. If I've zoomed out, oops, I almost put on another app. So if I'm just to switch on the photography, because it's not it is ISO to a point, but even 200, 400, you shouldn't have a ton of grain. You don't get grain until like 1,000, 1,200 on ISO, usually at night. If you're shooting daylight, all your stuff. I'm looking for my camera. I had my camera. I put my camera away. My Nikon. But yeah, drop your f-stop number down to like somewhere below an f16. And I did a big test on this years and years ago. I had one of my Cromwell Churchills, and I wanted to see. I was reading about this because film grain in the publishing world on the printing side is huge. It's a big effing deal. On digital side, it's not so bad. But in the printing world, 300 DPI, CMYK, and that's what it was how do I get rid of the film grain? Because we kept pushing as a collective of contributors, of model authors. We're not really professional photographers at all. Some of us are trained, most of us aren't. Even those that are trained, they're trained in other things, not hyper tight product photography, which is kind of what this is. But what happens is everybody wants all this over here to be in focus, where the tip of this brush is, like over here. No, dude. I want you looking here. So put that down, drop your f-stops down, and stop worrying about the shit back here. Like, I don't care. And in fact, I think it looks more realistic. And even the iPhone already does it. I like the soft blur back here because now it looks like a machine. It looks to me a little bit more realistic. Like this has got physical size to it. So get your f-stops down, the number down. And it's actually the opposite. You're closing you're opening is it open aperture, smaller number, bigger aperture, all that. It's a mind fuck. Whoever came up with that system, like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm sure it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. But anyway, that's what it is. You're probably shooting at F22, F28 on your f-stops. Drop those down. You'll see a much bigger pop in sharpness. How do you add dust effects on light colored AFVs? So I did that over here. And what we talked about, Alex, was an extreme range of color spectrums. And we'll switch to this here in a minute. Actually, in a minute. We've probably done enough on this guy. We can probably switch over. It's probably a good segue, my friend. Is you want to leave yourself just enough room in the color spectrum to be able to go lighter on some of these light, especially the tans and stuff. So I've got kind of just an almost white shade. And then what I can do is I leave myself just enough wiggle room of adding a little bit of a lighter tone to it. And then you just basically build your contrast up. It's a little bit like this part here on the engine deck, Alex, where this is basically a really, really light tan, beige, and just pretend this is. And so what you're going to do is you're just working with contrast to build up the surrounding areas so that this actually looks the places that are dustier or dirtier. And then it's going to be studying some of that. You might be painting some of that too. You might be dusting that on with an airbrush, like if it's a Humvee or an Abrams or a Challenger or something in the desert, or even a DAC piece where, you're going to have to really study that a little bit to see, okay, well, how much of the dust collect, because dust collection in the desert isn't as strong as we all think it is sometimes, if that makes sense, because the wind, it's dry. There's no humidity to lock the dust on the surface. It's the same thing with the wintertime. It's often why these aren't dusty up top, because there's nothing there to stick that dirt down onto the surface. So it's a little bit of that, and then building up the contrast around it to kind of build up the visuals of it. So let's see. Hopefully that answered that. Usually shoot at 100, keep the aperture maximum. So yeah. So that's probably the big change, like in the photography conversation with the DSLRs and the mirrorless and stuff like that. It's with a more professional level, is actually lower the f-stop number to, like, I shoot a lot of stuff at between f8 to f11 now, being truthful. You'll find you get just amazingly sharp, crisp photos that way. And then the blurs on the outside, the bokeh and the depth of field, I don't sweat as much as I used to be truthful with you guys. Okay, we'll switch here, Mike. I'm gonna be doing a two-tone gray-brown cam. Okay, sweet. Okay. Do you find yourself fading the second color? That is the second camera. Okay, so you're gonna be painting the real early war brown and gray scheme. I talked about this I talked about it on this guy, actually. Whether to do your fading, try not to do a fade break between the colors. So in other words, if this is gray and this is brown, you're going to want that fade to be even across both of them, because the fading is going to happen to the whole exposed surface in the same process. It's just going to be a slightly different color. So that's a little bit more of an advanced airbrushing or advanced weathering, where you're fading across tones to get kind of the same result, if you will. So that's where you're going to have to play that up. And I probably, you'll do some airbrush work, get your base colors painted in, do some post shading to lighten up those center panels. But I find when people stop between the color breaks, when you're trying to kind of fade the whole thing, try to fade the whole thing evenly first, and then you can build up the contrast between the colors when you want to a little bit later on. Versus if you do it early, what happens is you kind of lock yourself into that, because you can't get rid of it if you don't want it. If you know what I mean by that. In other words, if you fade the center of this and the center of this, then you've got the dark shadows, kind of that quilted look. Well, what happens is, in reality, is the sun will fade the whole thing. It doesn't care that there's a break there. So what's going to happen is, if you fade the whole thing across this whole surface, you can come back in and add a little bit more varietal tonal changes in between. So make sure you're painting a little bit tighter into that. And that's what happens with the aircraft, guys. It's actually the same principle of the aircraft weathering. You get this really quilted out panel look, but when you look in the real world at aircraft, it's faded across the whole thing. You're only getting the like on an F-16 or something like that, you're getting a different type of look. But what's happening is you come back in and build it up later, but you're going to want to fade that a little bit more evenly across so that you don't lock yourself into that. I think that's what I see with where you get a lot of the same but different look to everybody's aircraft in particular, because it's basically the same conversation, is because they airbrush it all in and they lock themselves in and they can't get out of it. So if you kind of fade a little bit more smarter, come back in and you can build, and we'll actually get into that a little bit later, but in terms of switching projects and showing some stuff like that. That's kind of one of the things I see quite a bit, where that's what happens is I try to actually, in color modulation too, I know I've talked about with Adam a little bit, where I actually try to do a little bit more of a zenithal lighting with color modulation, so that I don't get too much of this kind of quilted color break between panels too much, in terms of where it's kind of darkening around here and then fading over here and all that kind of stuff. I try to fade the whole thing as one, and you'll have, I think, a little bit more successful result with some of this stuff. So what you're going to want to do is you have your base colors, and each base color will be lightened about the same amount, so that the browns and grays are faded evenly in terms of percentages. That hopefully makes sense. You can always shoot me stuff later too, give you a little bit more. Yeah, so that's model guy. I'm gonna guess actually that's probably what that is. If your photos aren't coming out how you think it is, and you have a DSLR, it's drop your f-stop down, the number. You're right here, Alex. Good night, buddy. Bon nuit. I'd say bonsoir, but good night. Yeah, have a good time. We'll talk soon. Let's see here. Bedtime. Yep. Okay. Preach about the patchwork. Yeah. And there was a really good photo the other day of a 109, 1944-ish or whatever it was. And it was the angle of the camera, just so you can see across the whole wing. The quilting just doesn't happen anywhere near it. And it's just, you see this stuff and you're like, okay, it just doesn't happen. And we get in this artistic mode of same, but different, where we kind of start following along like sheep. And they're not studying about the physicalities of how paint actually fades across a surface. The sun will treat it, the whole thing is the same way. And that's kind of one of the things. Yes, you'll get panel break discolorations between the two, but that's also because of either repairs or maintenance on that stuff, or there's a certain specific, like a Navy jet's can do a little bit different because of the saltwater corrosion, some of the other things going on. So you got to play it up. But in general, earthbound stuff, how do you approach weather and replacement panels? Well, I don't really approach it any different. In other words, if one's going to be newer, Dominique, then you're going to do less to it, if you will, if that makes sense. Basically, it's just how intense you go with the weathering determines its age. So if it's a replacement panel, you're just going to do less work in that panel area. And it's like if this was new, you're going to do less work on it, if that makes sense. I will go a level beyond Super Saiyan. Okay, pull this guy out. We can switch over to this. This is. So what I did this up here on Wednesday night was, you have to kind of get the angle just right. There it goes. So I've got kind of the dusting tones in there, and how it automatically builds up the contrast with the darker pieces. We did some kind of green patchwork in here on this piece, and then we did some of the light tones on this, and we'll just continue on with this guy. Do this for about another half hour to 45 minutes or so, and just kind of go and keep it going. They are the cat's pajamas. And I think that even just that little section mark is just really just breaks it down and explains it real easily, you know, in terms of, and then all you do is you just extrapolate out from that. And that's going to come with experience and practice and all those other things that that's going to happen on your guys' time. Insane. Nice to catch you streaming. Love your work. And is a bank holiday. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a big one coming up too. I think Labor Day's coming up. Finally watch it till the end. Oh, it's very cool. Very cool. What time is it in the UK? It is what, 10 after 10? Almost quarter past. Am I correct in that? You're 8 hours ahead of me, I think. UK, and it's 9 in Europe, I think. So it's probably 11. So yeah, Alex is up till, that's pretty good for him. All right, I think I'll be fading with oils. Can't airbrush that great. Yeah, for sure. And that's playing with your strengths. Absolutely. And I know I preach this to you guys a little bit. You know, getting the test model set up and practice and stuff. Getting good with the airbrush is a critical element. I'm looking for a dust brush here, right? I got to refocus my brain here to do this guy. So switching gears a little bit. Okay. So I need this brush here. Was the darker tone? That's the blender. So this guy's a little bit more unique, especially the military guys. So again, this is a giant bazooka that a robot will hold, kind of basically like an RPG or classic bazooka or Stinger missile, kind of goes over the shoulder. So if the machine's carrying this around, it's a humanoid machine. It's going to be kind of at a set angle, but also probably when he's not in combat, which is, you know, like a sortie, it's going to be probably racked away. You know, it's like a weapon rack in the hold of the spaceship or the base of operations. So this is a giant, realistically 30, 40 foot long, like bazooka thing. So what I'm trying to do is kind of dust this up in the sense of, yes, gravity is important, and yes, the machine handles it and stuff. So how do I treat this? In other words, I don't really have any reference for this stuff. It's a little bit like an excavator arm where that kind of moves at angles. So I guess when it stops and is in storage for a while, that's when the fluids will leak in that gravitational panel. So I'm probably just crutching myself with the vertical streaks this way, but you know, realistically, this thing's gonna probably be resting this way half the time, or it might even be stored vertically like most long weapons are. So I'm kind of learning with this one a little bit, but at the same time, I'm just trying to get a nice patina to it. Is really where I'm at with this in terms of my mental process. Because the historical stuff's a little bit easy because I've studied it so much. If that makes sense too. So I've got the blender, I've got that. Okay, so back to so this will be a little bit more of a light tan gray tone. Not as brown dusty, if you will. A little bit more of a grayed out dust. Hint of white to it. So again, we'll just zoom out a little bit here so you can see. Probably shove that over here a little bit. Oops, more of a tilt. So I'm kind of I'm working on this side of the palette right now. I'm just kind of giving these lighter dust tones. So I've worked up to, I've kind of got to right up to here. That's where I stopped. So I'm going to start right up in this joint here, and then we'll probably switch back. So same thing. That's a little wet. I always do this thing wrong every time I touch this thing. That was way too much. You can see how that blended out so fast. Just kick that back down there. There's a lot of thinner on that surface. I want more. Oops, I want my eyeballs back. Still a little bit on the too wet side. Keep adding a little bit more paint into that. Probably not, the oils on the palette have probably dried a little bit where they're not transferring to the brush as much. There we go. So it's just kind of lightening, getting kind of a, like, it's dusty, but it's like not like earth dusty per se. I don't want to say space dust, but just kind of dark tones tend to, over time, I was in my head, I was having this conversation with myself, as I often do, is the age of machines in terms of how long do we use weapons for, in terms of, these are all obviously combat weapons and stuff like that, but even the little worker robot dude, you know, if they're going to be in service for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that whole thing, you know, how often is it repainted? All that kind of stuff. You know, we use, you know, our jets and our tanks for a long, long time. So I'm kind of thinking kind of that mindset a little bit with this, because I don't have a ton of, like, I don't have a really good frame of reference. I have to kind of make this up. Yes, it's science fiction, but I do want it based in the physical reality of what happens with military equipment. Because most of these story arcs, even though they're animations, are all human operated devices. You know, it's all that. So that's where my head's at with a lot of this stuff. So I'm kind of leaning on my experience with the military stuff to bring it into the science fiction world, and kind of a slightly stylized Rinaldi-esque type believability element to it, if that's a thing. Is that a thing? You know, shapes that I'm just not used to working with, but I'm trying to break them down so that I can manage them. And these, you know, my brush is still new to working with this kind of I guess you can kind of say just what these are, so to speak. Yeah, but speaking of animation, I did see the trailer for Disney's new Vision series, or whatever it's called, the Star Wars Vision, where they're doing like a bunch of short animated Star Wars things that are kind of in Japanese animation style. I thought that was going to be pretty cool. It actually looked really nicely done. I'm a big fan of all that stuff. Not so much the last films, but that kind of Disney animation stuff is really cool, because the people they pass it off to do a really good job with it. That's loud even in my ears. Just kind of working with the dust here. And to recap, if you guys weren't familiar with this conversation I had on this piece, this actually has a matte varnish coat down underneath, and it kind of ruined a lot of the patina work I'd done with the airbrush. So I'm trying to recreate a lot of the stuff I had kind of worn off and had with that look inside with the oils. So you can see here, I'm just slowly building up my contrast. Trying to get a little bit more punch. I'm actually brushing upward. So what I can do here is, by getting myself in the zone, go a little bit of a darker shade, kind of a, so I'm using a tone on tone here, even though it's the same kind of greasy tones I was using before, maybe even a little bit of a black in that. So what I'm gonna do here is kind of a real dry brush. This is just dry brushing along the sharp edge there, just to pop some kind of, just a little bit more contrast on that edge. Not really chip, but just kind of, just more of a visual. It's actually showing up on camera. Okay, do a little close-up work for you. Just kind of dry brushing with the edge of the bristles. And what I'll do here is just kind of getting the color down a little bit. That's why you put that light color down first. So kind of dry brushing kind of the high spots with a darker tone. Try to real carefully get on that little lip in there. There's almost no oil on that brush, and there's almost no thinner. And actually this brush, when it gets to a certain point where it's almost super dry, you're gonna get some really cool little scrappy scruffs. There you go. You almost have to get the angle, visual angle just right to see what that is. See how that looks. This is the blender here. Just gonna soften it just a little bit. I want it kind of scruffy, scratchy, but not really chipped. If that makes sense. See, as they start to dry out and they get kind of matte on you, they'll tone down. It's a real subtle effect. You can see how gentle I am with those bristles. This is the blender brush. It's a little bit more of a kind of an artistic dry brush, if you will. Like, I'm not coming through and dry brushing too brutally with this to kind of pop up every single edge the same way. I want kind of a same concept with the pin washes, where I'm trying to be as really precise and really think this through. I use this one. Hope I had the wrong. I think I do. So reload the brush again with color, kind of a dark brown with a hint of black into it. That's because this base color is kind of a really dark olive drab brown color. But this little, this site here is almost black. So that's a black hose. You can see how the black's just a hint toned down a little bit. I'm just punching up some of the ones I lost. Some of the edges got a little bit knocked down too much. This is just slightly building up more contrast. See, I'm trying to be as precise as I can, because I want a little bit more. I don't want the entire thing like dry brush back out, if that makes sense too. I got the tip of the bristle right there. That's okay. It's kind of a little kind of chip mark anyway. But I don't want that to happen too much. I can build up a little bit more contrast here. Just kind of going back over some of the previous work. You can see how it kind of gently builds up that contrast right there. I was using, that was the blender brush. That's what that was. So I got myself confused. I confused myself. Okay, so now I'm just going to kind of tidy up the transition between the two. Kind of a jiggity kind of. I don't want it super vertically streaked too much. I've got a little bit in here, which is probably plenty. Probably do a little bit, soften that up a little bit. Just letting that bristle dance through there and kind of just knock some stuff down. And I'm just working, just like the StuG, I'm just working the surface I'm concerned with right now. I'm not overly concerned with the other areas just yet. We'll get to that though. So all the same principles, putting the light colors down first. That gives me kind of that faded, dusty discoloration in there early. And then I come back and I'm kind of doing a little bit of more of a dry brushing technique to kind of pop up and create kind of a worn high spot areas on these kind of ridges and little details on the gun. Kind of soften that up a little bit, a little scruffy, scratchy, which is fine. Just a little bit of this low ridge too. And again, you can see how I'm kind of on the edge. You see how I'm on the edge and just kind of rolling, just letting it run along the high, let it naturally catch that high spot. It's a real subtle dry brush. There's just enough of the paint transfer going down for me to work with this, which is what I'm looking for. And this is also a little bit of that brush burnishing idea too, as I mentioned before. So what this is doing, it's also polishing the matte paint as it goes. Like you can see how dry that is. That's actually acting like a little bit of a Brillo pad, a little bit of a soft sanding paper, and it's just polishing the matte paint surface underneath that. So you start to build up, that's why you see how you start to build up those sheens between the dustier areas, and then you got kind of the more rubbed on metal parts, painted metal parts. It's kind of not same idea. I'm just kind of kissing that up there a little bit, knocking that. So kind of just soften that. There it goes. Without even using a metallic yet or a graphite. Especially when that rotates through, you can see kind of the dusty, kind of faded look a little bit with that. What did I miss? Did I miss anything? Kind of got in the zone. I get going. That's always what happens towards the end of the streams. Now I'm warmed up. Now I can go for another 3 hours. Yep, you gotta go, Mike. You gotta go. 69 like. Yep, hit them likes, hit them subscribes, hit that bell. If you guys are on the YouTube train, hit the bell icon. Yeah, you gotta talk over the cars. Cannon for the Dom. Yes, Zach, that is the this is the Hyper Beam Bazooka for the Dom Tropin project, but this is a common Xeon weapon through a few Zaku's and Dom, Rick Dom weapon portfolios. I'm purposing them up for this guy. This will be the next big. This will be like the next big Mechatro weathering. It's this guy's. Let me zoom out just to show you what I'm talking about. Some of you guys are still okay. So this is the Gundam 1/144th scale. So it will. I'm not going to grab his arms and pose them just yet, but it usually holds it something like that. This upper thing is like the upper shoulder pad, so it usually rests kind of up in there, and he holds it kind of like that in most posing. Or he can, hold it out. You can see how big, it's way bigger. He's about 15, 16 meters, which is whatever, times 3-ish, 31, 32 feet. So he's probably just below the edge of my 6-story window. He'd be poking his head up at me. But this weapon is probably as tall as the building is. So this is a big dog. These are big enough in the anime stories to blow up the spaceships. These are powerful enough to do that kind of damage. They're of the more powerful type weapons. But he also has I'm kind of treating this as a kinetic energy type machine gun weapon. And I've got the case on this side, on the left side. So this is Kotobukiya, which is, they make a lot of little like detail sets for Gundams, but the ammo bin is swappable left or right-handed. So I've made his machine gun left-handed actually, because he doesn't have a shield in the left hand. This is all the robot shit we worry about. So this guy will go over here. So the ammo bin will be on his outside hip. And then I've got this guy here. We could actually do a little bit of work on this next, actually. I've got I'm getting the good vibes on the Bazooka now. But I've got his big battle sword kind of thingy here. Again, this thing is huge. And I play with scale with my Gundams a lot. I play with the thruster size and the weapon size to kind of get kind of a dramatic, whatever you want to call it. But this guy actually will mount this way. So his sword will actually, I got to scratch build a mount. So he'll have a mount that goes in there, and it'll be like that. So that way he can reach up over his shoulder and pull it. That's how that works. Oops. So I banged the camera mount really good. I thought I broke it there for a second. But yeah, so that's what we're doing with that. And we'll start putting that together as we go. And the thing sticking off his back shoulder is a propellant fuel tank like on a rocket. Put him back up on the shelf. So we'll get to him in a future stream. But let's switch him. Put his brushes out here. Let's switch over to this guy. I've never really done something device like this big battle sword thing. So I've been trying to figure out like what I want to do with it. Like, how do I make it? Like, do I make it like a metal sword, like a real sword, like in a movie sword? Do I go kind of it's only used occasionally. So the surface is, I don't know, steel. Does it get like a heat element to it, like his heat sabers? So he has that machine carries a device that it's not a lightsaber. It's kind of like a hot metal steel sword, and he'll jam it through the other robots, but just the pure heat of it. Kind of like a lightsaber, but it's not a beam effect. It's heated metal. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I think it's called a heat saber, I think is what it's called. So how do you approach with it? Oh, we got that. Okay, I'm just scrolling back up. Joshua Lee, how are you? Been a while. It is, my friend. How you doing? Jeff Longman, nice to see you. Shiva 369, 69th like. Nice. That was well timed, my friend. I see what you did there. You're correct with the weapon. You sure? No. Yeah. So anyway, this is also a Kotobukiya sword, but the Bazooka is actually Bandai, Canon, Xeon, all that stuff. Der First. Finally found the time and was in my zone to watch. Chill and build. Yep. Awesome. Welcome. Your figure painting IG is great. Yep. Yeah. John Fossey. Is it Noisy? Is that what you remember? I think that's what that means. I'm sorry if I keep butchering your name. J-Day, hot knife through butter. Yeah, exactly. And there's a great scene in 08 MS Team, the animation, where that Dom comes around that corner. I think it does it to a what does he put that through? He did. You see what he had? Well, no, so the beam saber is like a lightsaber, which is like the Star Wars version, but it's a giant machine version. So the beam sabers are actually just like a lightsaber, where they have an actual like laser beam comes out. But this is actually a heated piece of metal, and he's one of the few machines that carries it, and it goes on his back, and it's like a spike, and it heats up really hot, and it glows really hot, and then he jams it through. So I guess it's kind of, I think it's called a heat saber, not the beam saber. The scope lenses, I have actual lenses. I haven't put them on yet. Which ones am I using? Probably some aftermarket ones, but they sell all sorts of little clear lenses, you know, for that stuff. Like on this, it's kind of this thing, like his eyeballs. These are the old Grief lenses, aftermarket. Those little eyeballs in there, 2mm lenses. So what I'll do is I have a red one for. Whoops, I'm trying not to touch that. So there'll be a red lens in here, and then this will be painted green. And then there'll be a clear part that goes over that, like a headlight lens. So yeah, they'll be painted and or actual parts. I don't use the stickers, and that's kind of a big no-no in painted world. Don't use the Bandai stickers. Everything good? Okay, cool. Let's keep going. All right, so let me. I'll verbalize this as I kind of think this out. So I'm probably going to do a similar effect. I think kind of this where I got kind of this like faded, dusty. Kind of do that up in here. Again, just to repeat, this had to be varnished for the paint was chipping off. This was actually, I did all that before the decals. All the decals were put over the matte varnish from before. I don't know if I made that clear in the last rant I had on this guy. But what was happening is the paint was chipping off so easily. Oh, thank you, Chain. Whoops. Oh, nope, I didn't want to do that. Pull that back up. There you go. Sorry about that. Got a book order through there, and I meant to click it off screen, but I hit the app by accident, PayPal app. But anyway, you could actually see in camera. Oh, wait, is it upside down? Hold on 1 second. I know what it's doing. There it goes. Okay, put that back down. Sorry about that. Okay, so what you can actually see, it's actually a good contrast. This is one of the, to just, I don't want to get into it, but I just want to touch on it real quick. My mood is fine today for that, but so what you get here, actually, let me, hold on 1 second. Let me get this blender brush a little bit. See that right in there? Okay. Get a little unblended there. All right. So what I had to do was I was having some paint adhesion issues, and so I sealed it up, and it killed all this really cool patina. But you can see just I had kind of splatter painted kind of the steel, splotchy steel effect on the sword. It does catch it in certain angles still. There's still a little bit left in there. It just kind of killed the whole thing. But anywho, yeah. So I'll have to rebuild some of that up. That's what you're seeing in there. It's kind of a textural painting episode, and then I matte varnished over it. Okay, so let me pull in here. Down kind of like I'm tempted to really rust this thing out a little bit and kind of like what I did with the Mechatro hands. I'm very tempted to do kind of that look there onto the surface of the sword, but I just don't know. That means I'm going to really be painting a steel part per se. Like I'd lock into that. That's what I was trying. Yeah, is it a heat saver force? Yeah, something like that. But that's what the Dom and the Rick Dom carry. They carry it on the back. And it reaches up and grabs it, but it's not an actual like laser beam sword, like a lightsaber. Okay, Mike, sorry, I missed that question. Mike, I know it's a bit off topic, but how would you approach a brown seat cushion on a seat with no texture? That green section of the weapon seems like a good approach. Yes, that's actually a great question. We haven't talked about textiles too much. And then in SMO2, I do the whole tractor bench because it's just a piece of plastic. You actually have to paint that in. But study leather goods, you know, for sure. Definitely pull up a quick reference of like, you can Google search quickly, like a leather ammo pouch. And then what you're going to do is you just look at the frayed edges of it, and then kind of replicate. Depends on how you want to play that though. Sometimes the seated area, you can go kind of darker, smoother leather, and then you're dry brushing kind of the outer edges in a lighter leather tone to get kind of a 3D effect. Anything in front of me? We'll circle back to that one later on too, Mike. I got to do some textile and fabric painting and stuff. But you can also go the other way where the leather is cracked down to the substrate and you're getting kind of that white leathery interior that's not dyed, like the brown or black colors. You know, you get a transition of all the dyes in the leather and how that works and stuff. And then you can kind of pull up supply. So it depends on how old you want it to look and what you can do, but just Google some references because I did try to do this kind of as some sort of a textile. Same with the handle here. So hopefully that'll help you kind of just get you going. Yeah, how do you, so sandbags, here, I'll show you real quick. You know what, let me see if this will do it. Let me do some things real quick, guys. Give me 2 seconds and we'll pull out the Tank Art 2. Just want to see how this kind of looks in my head. I'm trying to mentally take this direction. So I won't scratch the paint. That's a sanding sponge. Okay, so I'm just putting down some kind of light dust tones here. Again, light to dark. I can always go back over this, or this is again the first initial stage. This is getting some color on the model, for, above the paint. Not really like a wash, but it's kind of a filtery wash, if you will. I don't know what you'd even call it. So let's just kind of jiggy this up a little bit. See what the blending does. See how it looks. Kind of soft diffused a little, kind of around the edges of everything. I'm leaving the stuff in the joints untouched almost. It looks worse on camera because you're at the viewing angle of the light on the wet thinner. You can see that's what I'm looking at. There's a little bit more contrast here. So I'm trying not to give it really any too much direction per se. Like I'm not really streaking it one way or the other way. I'm just kind of a cloudy effect. Just want to see what happens more than anything. This is kind of the first time I've done something like this big because it's huge. So I can't treat it like I don't want to treat it like a giant handheld sword per se, almost, if that makes sense. Because it's not going to be used in the same manner that say a knight carrying a sword would be using this. The way it's stowed, all that kind of stuff is a little bit different. So I'm trying to kind of experimentally see what happens, which is honestly kind of fun. I'm not stressed or anything. I'm just kind of curious. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And I could even come in with my little Jimmy Jam here. Just kind of stipple. And I'll get to your sandbag question here in a sec, Sal. You can see I'm just working with the thinner that was on the surface. You can see how it stains the dark paint a little bit. So I got to come in with a little pure thinner and kind of soften that up. So as I move forward, I don't have such a hard break between the colors. It kind of gives me a little bit more. So that's what I'm saying. I've never really done this kind of a flat, open weapon type thing like the jam that in the second hold it. There's another fire truck. It's busy out there today. Kind of the last week of summer here in the US. I think we have Labor Day next weekend, and then that's it. School starts for most of you guys already. But then you got Mother Nature doing her crazy thing in Louisiana and all that shit. So I'm just kind of wiping back the edges a little bit, keep the edges a little bit cleaner. And again, this is the first layer, so that I'm not super concerned other than just making sure it doesn't dry funky, like in some weird pattern. Just want to make sure I've got kind of a nice early dusty base down. There's a little bit of it. Kind of soften that. Being super gentle with this. I'm trying not to muddy it up or move it around too much. I'm trying to keep that gritty, cloudy look a little bit. And so I think a lot of guys, when you're doing like say you're doing a KV or T34 or like a Panzer Gray and you're dealing with this kind of stuff, what I'm doing here is just basically any residual oil, because there's a little bit of stain action going on. It's just really wiping that down so I don't get any crazy kind of hard edge, kind of weird oil drying. So it's going to dry a little bit. Kind of just pulling it out. Right now, this is kind of more about the drying over in this area. I don't want to get any weird splotchy look right now. Now it's starting to air dry out a little bit more. Soften this up a little bit. So oops, that's what I'm talking about. Where I got a little, see how I moved that around? I caught it too much. Wipe that back off that edge. That's because there's a little bit of thinner left in there. Try to catch that up a little bit. But that's not super end of the world, because what I can do is I'm going to come back in and hit some of those high spots with a darker tone as well. Same along with this, whatever, I forget what that's called. What's the name of that in swords where the hilt joins into the blade itself? There's a name for that thing, I think. I forget what it's called. And then we'll pull up in the book here, and I'll show you with the book pictures. I don't have any textile stuff, but the Firefly project had quite a bit in the Allied book. And I can also re-answer Mike's question as well. So I think there's some leather work on that thing too. See, I'm just carefully dry brushing that edge right there. And this is why putting the light color down first is so much more. It's just like the tires. This is exactly the same process I did with the tires, guys. It works really effectively on stuff like this. The trick is to get that brush in there without effing anything up. It's a tight little spot right in there. Try to be real gentle, like real gentle. Just kind of scruffing that up a little bit. That gets that dusty fade down into the metal area, and then kind of let the brush kind of hit the hot spots a little bit. I'm just kind of letting it do its thing. I'm not really super trying to draw it just yet. See, I'm just trying to get it just so the tip doesn't kiss that lower ledge. I'm just trying to run a little bit on the edge. You can probably use sponges or other things for this too. I'm just using my tools I have on hand. You can use there's other little devices that might be able to get in there a little bit more precise. But I kind of do want a little bit, just like what I did. Yeah, see, there we go. You can kind of see a little bit of that embedded dust a little bit in there, and it kind of keeps that scruffiness. It's kind of again, it's more of the coffee shake. You know, you just kind of jiggly that. Oops. Leaning on that guy. Just a little bit too much there. I was laying that bristle down so low, it was just, that's okay. So it's kind of not quite dry yet, but having that light, dusty, faded look down first, you know, in those little divots or bolt holes or whatever those things are. Oops, it's out of focus. sorry. And that's how you get that dust down in there early, and then you start dry brushing the darker parts around it. Because this area underneath the hilt and everything that's kind of hidden there is never really going to be touched per se. Firefly, I forget where the firefly is. There it is. Okay. Okay, there's a sandbag up there. Okay, so this is in contrast. If you guys were here earlier in the stream, with the StuG, where I was mentioning pre-painting the back decks and the engine decks of armor before you load it up with gear, it's one process, and this is the other type process where you build the whole thing out and you're painting the whole thing as you go. And this is a color modulate. This is a heavy color modulation project. It's one of the most intense painting exercises I've ever done personally. But where you're going to come back in and you're going to have to paint everything after the fact, kind of a thing, kind of a deal. So this is all the gear in here. There's some sandbags in there. I don't know if there's any. There might be some. Is there any leather on this? I don't think there's any leather. So now what you do, brushwork, brushwork, brushwork. This is hand painting. Everything in here is you all have to hand paint this. Same thing in the track armor down here. This all starts to get hand painted out. Actually, what you just saw with that sword hilt over here, this guy. So what I'm doing is I'm putting in the lighter dust tones on this, and then I'm dry brushing in that darker rustier, exposed or brushed over, burnished cleat metal on those tracks, and that's how you're getting that. Same thing in the back of that shovel, exact same process you just saw, almost probably the same colorway. So this is transfer of techniques and trying to, I was leaning on there's a little bit of leather for you, Mike. I don't know, it's a little, it's not the best. That's a little leather strap there, right there. Let's use a sword as a pointer. But that area of the shovel here is exactly that process I did on the hilt and on the side of the bazooka. So there's a sand. So what I do with sandbags, so think this out. That's going to be like a burlap sack, Zal. And a lot of guys, in my personal opinion, will overdo this. In other words, they've got so much shading on this stuff, but my tank doesn't have a lot of shading. So I try to play my stowage into the style of armor painting that I do so that it kind of jives together. Because sometimes what happens is you start painting these like a Zenithal figure and it kind of doesn't look like it matches the tank as much. So here's the same basic principle on that shovel head bracket right there. Just a different colorway, the pale greens with the dark metal. Same idea in terms of the burnishing. And then come on over to here so you can see what we did. There's the wood there on the stowage crate, and then back here when you start doing the same idea, dry brushing the darks and adding in kind of the wood tones. I'm trying to find, probably, do I have a little bit more? See, I treat my fabric. So if I treat my fabric as just, if you look at fabric, there's not a lot to it. So here, yeah. So I'm trying to find, there's a shot here. So yeah, this is kind of the sandbag next to the tarp kind of look for you. So just using, tans and beiges and browns right in here. But you can see I don't really do much to it. What I do is I weather everything else around it. And then what happens is that starts to look like just a plain old happy burlap sack of nothing. Yeah, so it goes back to all the painting that was done. But you can see it sitting right in there. Just a tan color. Yeah. So what I would say overall, to recap on fabric and textiles just real quick, is just get the base color down. And then I just do a little bit of because there's some sort of natural airbrush shading underneath. I just kind of build up the opacity of the tan on top and got kind of a natural progression because it's kind of darkened into the pre-airbrushed coloring from before. You know, I'm taking the colorways in here as my shadow colors underneath, and then building up on top to get to this look. Does that make sense, Sal? I hope that makes some sense. So all this darker shadow tone under here is the darker earlier painting work in there. And that's why you see it looking airbrushed in this manner, where all these darker, like you see it looking like this intentionally, where that's all kind of shadowed in, because I'm going to paint the tones kind of build up thinner until I get to the top color, which is kind of what happens right there. So that's usually when it's all by brush with that stuff. So you airbrush it in first if it's on the model, and then, but you can also do that like off the model too. You can airbrush it that darker tone and then brush paint in the tones up top. Hopefully that answered that clarity. Mike Sage what? Did D plus 18? D-Day reference intended. That's funny. You did the math on that? Yeah, Squid Lips. Yeah, it's a bummer. Talking about the Belgian GP. Just kind of didn't happen today. Aussie Scale Model Secret. Hey, Mike, how are you? I'm doing good. Oz, how are you, buddy? It has a pommel. Just it's got a little but a pommel there, yeah. Just saber does it. Is that what that was? That's called a pommel? It has a pommel. Just can't see it because he's holding it by the pommel. Okay. Yeah, I forget some of my sword part terminology, because I know with hilts and stuff, there's specific terms for how swords are when they're joined with the blade to the hilt, and the handle goes into how it locks it. All that, I find that fascinating. There's a really good the guy that did all the swords for Lord of the Rings. He's an actual sword maker, and he did all of them. They're all real swords. I find that just utterly amazing that he did all those swords for the main characters and stuff. Like they're all real swords. But how he talks about the construction, it's pretty old now. Those moves are older. I think it would have been a non-corrosive alloy or saber. Yeah, so that was kind of like, do I play this as steel? The robot has some rust on it, so you know, I'm kind of yeah. I want to rusty. I want to do rusty, but I probably not. I'm sorry, I need some sleep. Early call. You're welcome. AT testers, welcome, and hello, Harold Quill. What brand of paint did you use that's shipping off? Oh, it was, I mean, don't ask those in that sense, dude. Just be honest with you. It doesn't matter. It happened. Why? Because they had greasy fingerprints on underneath. I paint everything with mission models, but wasn't a paint failure. It was a micro problem. So it doesn't matter about that. I paint water-based colors, everything. It didn't matter if it's live color, Vallejo, whatever it is like that. I've had paint failures from other stuff, but the reason was what had happened. So to back that up, because I don't like the intention of the question, even though you're probably being innocent with it, because it tends to make the brand look bad. It has nothing to do with the brand of paint. Be really clear with that. It is because this thing is so hard to figure out how to handle to paint it, and all the devices I used to hold it and stuff just weren't working. I had been holding it quite a bit, and it was a stream thing, and I was scratch building some details. I got my mitts all over it, and I didn't take care of it enough. And what had happened was basically I didn't wash it off before I painted it. And I just had adhesion failure is because you've got something on in between. It's not a paint brand problem per se. It almost never is, to be honest with you guys. It is because I fucked up in terms of how I handled it, and I didn't do it properly. And that's because they're weapons, and I'm like holding them, and it's just like a lot of this stuff where I can put on a base and just kind of back off it a little bit, like the normal model building stuff, it's fine. But these things have fought me because I've been just handling the whole thing. So, but to be honest with you, I don't really care for the intent of the question, because it's like, it's just so specific. Like, well, you're just trying to call them out, and it's not the point of what I've mentioned. Is because I messed up, and that was being a noob, if you know what I mean. It's more about that, and trust me, it is. There's a lot of that. There's I've noticed, because of the way I stream and how I do it, a lot of the things where I'm handling it, like the tires in particular, because I basically was holding them. You know, I've got to back off some of that stuff moving forward. The StuG too, I've got to make sure when I move into the more serious parts of the StuG to finish it up, that I clean up some of the hand work, because I've been touching it so much to show you guys all that kind of stuff. Usually when I do these works, I obviously, like a lot of, model builders, I, put them on the things, and I never really try to touch them too much. Like, I wish I could never have to, but I kind of have to hold this up to do 5 years now, Zach. Yeah. Since they started. So, and to be truthful, I've actually, the problems I had on this particular bazooka sword, I've never had ever before. And it was just because I just was kind of just guerrilla, I tend to do weapons as it was kind of an afterthought. And that was kind of what I figured out. The tang, it is the tang. Okay. The pommel is the ball Like surface attached to the end of it. Okay, so this is the pommel on the end of the handle, and the tang is what goes in there. Is there a part of the hilt that it's clicking into, or is it just the hilt? The tang goes into the hilt and then it locks into place? Is that what happens, I think? Because it actually is a physical, there's like sometimes there's an extra pin in there, but I think if I remember that, when that thing goes in there, how it all locks into place is what holds it together, right? It's pretty cool. Yeah. Need to put that to practice. Yeah. Hopefully that helps out with that and Mike too as well. So we can kind of whatever. Yeah. And again, this is just science fiction sword stuff. This is a Kotobukiya weapon set, and I don't know if it came with this machine gun. It might have or not. There's a bigger gun. I think there's a bigger gun that comes in this particular set as well. Yeah, I don't know my sword. I know my sword terminology, but I'm rusty. All right, Mark, have a good one. Thanks for coming through. You had a busy night. Depends on the sword. The hilt usually slides up to the tang and locks it in. Yeah, it's pretty cool how they do all that stuff. Do a rust paint tutorial. We did a bunch of Aussie. If you go back, it might be in the chipping 101. All this stuff was all the rust painting with the life color. And we did quite a bit of work with that in the life with these guys there, the hands. And that was putting a rust tone right on top of the raw plastic. And then what else did we do that on? We did that with the wheels and tracks episode. I think it's marked as wheels and tracks. I just got like my little sauce, my little appetizer plate. So this is all rust paint on top of the tan primer. Mission Models tan primer with the life color rust on top of that. And then these are all Mission Models. Most of the painting I do is with Mission Models today. Almost everything I do, but 5-6 years or whatever, how long they've been around. So yeah, we'll wrap up here in a few seconds. Any final questions? Japanese swords of it, entire vocabulary for, yeah, they do two hands. That's what, and I've watched a lot of those, how things are made, and all those classic episodes of all that stuff where you see how they do all those things. And that little bit though, and this is what I often need for my own model building to wrap up the kind of the monologue of today with weathering. I don't need much to get kind of the feel or the vibe of the piece in terms of what I'm doing, especially if I'm new to it, like in this particular case. Or it's a type of, like, say it's a type of machine or vehicle, like the Zal's like Typhoon APC, the Russian APC, armored car. It's a different type of weathering because it's just so flat and it's so blocky. It's just not like other tanks and AFEs, so it's got its own flavor to it. So I oftentimes find myself getting a vibe, getting started. And that's what you're seeing with this guy right there, was just using my experience and leaning on a little bit. But I actually really like the light faded parts underneath now and how that's looking kind of as a start. And you can see where I was wiping that all down, why that's so important, because I don't have any like awkward drying oils down there. So now I can continue on and figure it out. It doesn't probably need it's going to be a pretty easy stretch down here. And then what I want to do with the actual cutting surface and how I want to treat it. And then this, I don't expect it to be very hard or anything. I just want to make sure I was doing it kind of so it looked pretty cool. I want kind of a cool vibe about it. I want all the weapons on this thing to have like they've been around a while. Like this thing has been in service for years. And it's well taken care of, but it's not like a pristine factory finish thing. Oh yeah, that's what it was, Peter. I was trying to think what the other stuff was. Yeah. And then I don't know the exact stream we did that in, but there's a bunch of rusting on the exhaust too, by the way. So yeah, we did quite a bit of rust over time. We do rust every 3 or 4 episodes for sure. The Killium. Thank you, Nog. That's what thank you. There was something in my noodle that was like, there's one more part about, yeah, it's I think the thing that locks it all together when the chain goes in and the hilt and the blade and everything, that's the thing that locks it all together. Really cool. I need to do some sword studying. Oh, thank you, Rizdom. Yep. Got the big B-Day out of the way. The life color number is 701 to 704. Yeah, they're in the Rust and Dust set. I think it's CS10 is the box code number for that. I've got it listed down on all the descriptions too. I think I've just kept it in there for you guys. You just have to find it on the internet, whoever sells it. They're all over all the hobby shops and eBay and stuff like that. It's pretty universal. There's no like life color store you go to, so you just have to kind of dig them out. But I also used the Mission Models rust tones the other day. I forget what we were painting up on that too. They have like a light rust in them, standard and dark rust too. Yep, Darren, thank you guys. Yeah, any final questions? 304 here. Yeah, we've been through, that was a quick 3 hours. Man, these things go by so fast for me. I don't know how long, it must be dragging on for you guys, but good intro conversation. It's just a refresh to just kind of hammer home some good tips and points and pro tips. And there's even some good photography commentary in there in the f-stops, which is going to be valuable for some of you if you're not getting the real sharp, crisp pictures in your photos. What else did we hit? There's good brushwork on the StuG. Really in particular the thinner use and just kind of my mental process for the weathering when you start your initial points, and then how you work in the remainder of the things and how this looks over the course of time. So you can see the harmony here is actually coming out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, where we've got kind of push that down there. So we get kind of the darker, richer tones down in here and slightly reduced up into here. And what I can do is over here, I can keep that going. And as we go this way, we go a little bit less of the colorway so that we get more kind of a distemper in the paint versus kind of a greasy, grimy look, more of a crew handled look. So we can kind of play the whole story up and over the vehicle as we go. But as you can see, it takes time. I mean, we spent an hour just on that hatch, I think, or 45 minutes just on that hatch area, but that's what it requires. So you're welcome, Max Escamilla. I like your last name, brother. I got some great tips from my shirt. Yeah, hopefully that helps out too. Hopefully that kind of explains some of and we'll do stowage and leather and maybe more wood. And I do want to do tracks and wheels probably pretty soon. I think I mentioned that. I'll post on Facebook and Instagram as I get to. There may not be a stream Wednesday, so don't be surprised if you don't see anything. But I might just post something, just a reminder. If I don't stream, I'll let you know as well. I might be cutting. I'm thinking it's about time to cut back to one stream a week for a while, then start doing some edited content because I need to do some other stuff too. Yeah. So hopefully, question dumb one. No, you're not dumb, brother. This time, best way to clean off a model that has been a bit. So what I do is I get these. I have a couple of these big fat makeup brushes, Dan, and I do. First off, I take my airbrush clean, blow off as much dust, loose dust as you can. And then take a really soft brush like this. In the pigment area, you're probably not gonna be able to do too much of it. And then you just real gently, you're just gonna come in here, gently soft dust those off as much as you can. Most of my stuff I don't have in a cabinet, so anything displayed does get dusty for me too. So I do it probably. These are unpainted. I don't worry about these guys too much, but the painted ones behind me, I clean off about once a month. Because the windows, we get some outside dust comes in and stuff. So I clean them off about once a month. What else? Thank you, Darren. You too, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your. Yeah, I've got a half a day left, so I might go out and get a beer in my last milk my free drink for the birthday weekend. Do that one more time. I did that a little bit yesterday. Got some free donuts. I got free coffee. Got free guacamole. Dude, birthdays are the best. Yeah, we learned that sled washes are not. Yeah, you will never see me do a sled wash. In none of my work in the past 15 years, I've ever done a sled wash. Probably not, Zal. I'm thinking, well, the next 2 weeks for me are going to be really intense with the printing. So I need to break off and do some stuff. And so I may not have the time. And then what I want to do probably in October, because that'll push me through halfway through September. We should be starting to ship 3rd, 4th week of September for the group 1 printings, get those going. That's going to be a major endeavor for me because international shipping right now is a nightmare. So I'm trying to still solve it. But when airbrushing olive drab, what do you add to the base color to modulate it? So to lighten it up, let's see, what did I use? I think I just went with lighter greens. Yeah, I just went with lighter greens. So olive drab base to me is olive drab is a really nice rich dark tone, and this is probably true to the factory color. It's a really dark deep color, to be honest with you, but it does fade fast because it's dead matte. So dead mattes get the dust embedded in it quite quickly in the cast texture, and that's what we were doing over here. But I modulated it down with what do they call this? This is olive drab ground color. But you can just see by the bottle color, by the edge of the colorway, just the lighter tone of it. And there's a lot of OD shades available. Like that's no big deal. Oh, thank you, Corey. Greens and more yellow are fine. Yeah. So if you, what I think the one main point for that, Sal, and I know probably two hands is what you're referring to. It is a bad idea to lighten OD with white. It gets really chalky looking and it doesn't look correct. So lighten your ODs and even your pans or grays with the lighter shade of the base color. And then in the case of olive drab, because it's made from yellow ochre and black is the actual pigment blend of the paint. That's actually how it's made. You can use a lot of yellows with OD to lighten it up in terms of adding color to lighten your base color up and then airbrushing that on if you don't have a lot of bottles to pick from. Thank you, Larry. Live is coming late back in. Corey, probably, I don't know. I haven't just decided just yet. We'll see how this week goes. I might skip Wednesday. I'll definitely do Sundays for sure. Sunday's no big deal, but the Wednesday stream might be sporadic for a few weeks. Yeah, I know what you meant. I know what you meant, brother. Arnell, happy belated. No, thank you guys. Yeah. Yesterday was my B-day, 5-1, which is why there's 5-1s all over this that I painted Monday and Tuesday. I always do that with my models. There's always 203. 203 was an actual number on a turret, but I don't know, is it in this one? Yeah, 23. So when I did this one, there might be, I don't know if anybody's in stream that remember. I don't know if I didn't see Darren Thompson today. I don't know if he is. You're there. Hello. If you're not, I didn't see you today, buddy. That 23, that I painted that this day that LeBron James moved back to Cleveland and took Michael Jordan's number. I'm like, oh, we're painting that 120. I do that. And there's a 47 on the Sotheby, on the legs of the Sotheby. This is how I pick my numbers on stuff I don't have like actual. Yeah, OD olive drab's a dead color intentionally. It's a really good camouflage color. So the 47 on the leg, the movie just come out with 47 Ronin with Matrix boy Keanu Reeves. Yeah, I'm well in the 50 club now, my friend. Yeah, big old 5. We're all downhill from here. We're all going in. Meister StuG 3. Hey, Mike, do you use the light color brush tone color? Do you use the liquid pigment set from? I was sent all the liquid pigments. I did explore with them quite a bit. The thing with the liquid pigments is if you do not use solvents at all, like if you're never going to use oil paints in weathering enamels, they're excellent. However, like I said, with many of the weathering commentary we were having over the last couple of streams, is that I've yet to see something better than an oil paint per se for what we do, how I do it, how I do my things. So they work really well. Just the oil paints work better. So I just stuck with them. But the liquid pigments are an excellent product thing from, and Vallejo has something similar, I think. And the Mission Models paints kind of play a little bit in the same conversation with the thinners and doing, we haven't really gotten advanced weathering from paints kind of with the acrylic paint conversations as much. Just because I haven't really had something to do with it yet and haven't really played with it. But yeah, they're pretty cool. If you want to dive into that, Meister StuG, I recommend them. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking to do that, those sets are really, really interesting. But I think what they put some actual engineering into it. Like they actually try to develop a product that would basically replicate what the solvent-based enamel weathering, oil weathering stuff does via a water-based acrylic. Thank you, Robert. Yeah. I wish I was 41s out. 41s when I moved to Portland. I was a wee lad. Okay. Yeah. Zach Grill. Yeah, buddy. It's is that Zach? Is that another? I don't know which Zach are we talking. Who Zach are we talking to? Zach Grizzle modeling? No, or another Zach, or not Zach Aurelius? Sorry, if that is, hello, brother. I miss you. How are you? I hope you're well. If it is you, if not, hello, Zach. Anyway, I know a lot of Zachs, but anywho, it is. Yeah, the behind the scenes of international shipping. I had we had a lost delivery to a Niagara Falls address by the post office for a Toronto warehouse, which is common Canadian US shipping, where you go to a holding cell, they come down and pick it up and cross the border, but with everything going on. So we had to ship it in from Europe direct to them as a replacement package. The cost was astronomical. It was like, what the hell is going on? And it just really, yeah, Vivian, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to and I'm actually, to me, the most exciting time for me is to get all that done. Like literally get it all done. The stuff coming after I'm excited for, but okay. Oh yeah, Zach, thank you. Yeah, how are you? I thought we'd chatted before, by the way. And I have ordered from you guys before too, but usually through your eBay store. I usually get, I think I've got my Dom in the case is waiting to be built up. I think I have a Rick Dom. I went through the whole Dom. Oh my gosh. So those of you that are into the Rick Dom /Dom, the MS-09 mobile suit design is my personal favorite. And the 1.5 version of the kit, as for all of you who are not Gundam guys, you probably go right over your head. But I don't know when the 1.5s are coming. So I had 2 originals and I was like, well, it's coming this year. This is all kind of before the shipping COVID thing all went in the toilet. And dude, like if anybody knows, the cost of container freight it's out of control and it's screwing up everything. Like this is a major problem. So for us, RSP, our printers in Eastern Europe. and we get a little bit of a range of free delivery from the printer, which is why one of the reasons we use them, so we can get to our warehouse in Germany. The problem is all my North American and Asia customers, how are we going to get our bulk freight over here? Because we have to ship thousands of books, and you're talking thousands and thousands of pounds. And so, for those on the LTL / container conversation, prices are out of control. Like, I can't afford it. So I think we're going to do little sporadic shipments, and we're probably just going to suck up label costs and do them one at a time. People are just going to get DHL shipments direct, I think, is what's going to probably happen for us. But anywho, yeah, it's thank you, two hands. You took the words right. It is. Now, I've done surface freight a few times, and I've dealt with them directly. The guys that handle the surface freight, the actual controller dudes, I tell you what, they're lucky they're not in front of me sometimes, dude, because my God, they're criminally. I'm like, dude, we need the mafia. They will charge you for everything. You're like, dude, they'll charge you to go in the container to forklift your stuff out, which is why you see companies do full container loads. So an LTL, I learned the hard way, is a less than full load. That means those big the big 40 footers and 53 foot containers, if you just take up a little bit of it, they charge you to go in and out of that to get it to move it from one container out to another, to go on another boat to another port. Because I'm up in Portland, so to get it for me, it goes to LA or Seattle and comes down on another boat. They don't have a boat from Asia to Portland very often. So it's a whole bunch of stuff. If you don't know who Galactic Toys are in Michigan, they are one of the second or third largest in the U.S. now in terms of actual and they do you guys do military too, right? So yeah, because there's USA Gundam Store, who I work with, and there's you guys who I buy from as a customer, and all that kind of stuff. So, and I know you guys deal with some of the companies I work with. Yeah, almost as bad as publishers. Almost, not quite. Yeah, I want to get past all that too. Two hands, to be honest with you, it drives me nuts, dude. What I've had to deal with all that delays and fuck off. There are days where I don't sleep, and it's just like, okay. Yeah, you're very welcome, Mike. Thank you, brother. Stay safe out there. Keeping Chicago good and happy and healthy. A little bit of you guys do a little bit dabble in the military stuff, so it's cool. No, I oftentimes I'm actually cut through all my stash. I did like 200 snaps over COVID. I've sold about 150 back out through eBay just to kind of figure out what I'm doing with the books, and I've kept enough for book material. Any recommendation of what double side? Peter, I don't. I wish I did. Dude. Can you even see the name on this stuff? Eston. I don't know what the brand is. This was an eBay Amazon purchase. I think it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. So what I look for in a double side tape is I actually like a double side masking tape that's really firm. The tape really firm, and this stuff, it's not like a sponge tape. It's thin, but it's just you see that, right? It's really gooey. Like it. It's got a little gumminess to it. It's like a gummy bear. It's like a sticky gummy bear. There's a little. That's not too bad. This will get a little bit better. Yeah, but I've noticed with this tape in particular, getting small pieces off to use just a small piece of it, it's a little tricky. But yeah, I use double side tape as my third hand. Don't get. Yeah, it's not foam tape. This isn't a foam tape, even though it was brought up last time. It's not a foam. But it is kind of a gummy, gooey tape. It's not a firm masking tape, which is the one I had before that I used up was a nice like double side masking tape. It was harder to find than I thought. I thought going on Amazon, no problem. I got to get my butt to a hardware store. But any double side tape, I just use a 1/4 inch wide double side tape. So and like I said, the main reason is like this guy. Boy, that magnet's on there good. So this guy here, for just testing out, I double side taped his feet down. And then this little Jimmy rig, this guy's got the magnets. Those are 3 mil earth magnets, and there's 2 per. So what I did was he's got a little circle there in his heel, and it just happened to be 3 mil. 3 mil is a common hole in machine robot kits, and just happened to be the right side. I got lucky, and then I drilled the second hole for the front ones, and then I carefully measured twice, cut once, and then drilled the holes. The little bad boy snaps right down. Boop. Yeah. A little speckling on the belly. Dude, a lot of fun. These kits are awesome. And then I've added the cabling. That's all I did to this, and the 7s are painted and chipped, but the rest is all colored plastic, and then the rest is the life color. The rest is all oil paints on top. So that turned out, I was pretty happy with that. Experiment that went well. All right, we good with everything else? I noticed that LSG carries your stuff. Are they your main distributor? LSG, Lightspeed Global. They're my main Canadian now because we used to have Hornet Hobbies, Tiger Hobbies, and we used to sell direct into Canada, Zach. We don't have a North American distributor anymore, but Lightspeed Global is turned into that. And actually, that was one of the packages we lost. I've had to replace it and stuff like that. But yeah, if you need to order, you can definitely get it from there, or you can always drop me an email later. I'm happy to do. Like I said, we sell direct to USA Gundam, and then and they did it really. I mean, I really like the company, so I don't and by kind of agreement, I won't sell the new type. So kind of a thing, because I know who you guys are. But I would like to do something with Bluefin eventually and kind of work with them directly, but it's just kind of a tough road, because if I'm projecting this out, I would love to be able to get more involved with the early stages of the kit developments in that world and do the books a little bit on a sooner timeline with that general world. You'll see a lot of stuff in the Gundam. We're reprinting the SM3, but there's going to be a lot of Gunpla type in 2022 coming out, and aircraft and Gunpla Nitto tape is better. Oh, thank you, Rick. Hello, how are you today? It's a beautiful 80 degrees outside, but okay. So that's what it was, Rick. I was like, I had this last conversation. Effing double side tape is not it's 12 to 15, 20 bucks a roll. You're like, dude. So like, I got a 4-pack for like $24, and I'm like, okay, I'll just figure it out. I think this is for woodworking though, which is why it's got a slightly gooey texture to it. But I have painted 35th scale figures, not often, not very often, but I can defend myself. Let's see. Where's my dude in here? I thought I put this in here. Let's see, did I put that in the book? Okay. Oh, is it in 4? Which one has a flat gun in it, guys? The Panzer IV. Did I put that in Tinker 1? Oh, here it is. I thought I had a figure. My one dude. Hold on here. Yeah. It's a little Alpine. This is Alpine Miniatures. He is the 251 half-track driver guy, I think, or from that set. And I think I use the hat. I like the reverse hat look of kind of just. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I have done my one and done. I've done a couple, but in terms of for the books and stuff. My challenge with figure painting was, again, it's same as stowage, and I'm pretty particular about this, and why I'm so. And the same thing with base work. I'm real particular with it. Is to match the style of my machine painting and weathering to a human or stowage or fabric painting stuff to match, so it's a really nice blend. And I find that to be a real challenge, to be honest with you. The main reason is I don't do it enough, to be truthful. Like a lot of the stuff you have to do it. You can use dots of wet acrylic paint to mark the base for magnets. Yeah, that's what I did. I actually used a Sharpie. But I did, what I mean is I measured it out to get the angles, because I wanted to make sure the magnets held so these things, let's go, just so you guys know, because these are articulated. See how these move around? I wanted to make sure that the magnets locked in the splayed base of the feet in the proper angle. So I had to do some, it was a little bit harder than I thought it would be to kind of to get that to all set up right, so that the magnets help, because it is kind of it will squish back in a little bit on its own, because there's rubber joint polycaps inside, so it kind of pushes back in. I wanted the magnets to pull that leg back out, so he's got that. It's all about the stance, my friend. Just like with lowering your cars. Okay. Try adhesive double side sticky putty dots. There you go, on Amerizone. Do a special. Yeah, there's be no 35th scale streaming for me doing a figure painting. Not for a while. No interest whatsoever. That's just gonna be like punishment. Like, what did I do wrong, Zal? Why? Yeah, bases and figures are very fun and challenging. It's just, I'm particular about it. And oftentimes with my production schedules, with the usual, just, finish an article, I'm done. Like, I got to move on. And so usually, because I will put as much time into base painting and weathering as I would a model, and it's just now the project's like double the length of time. It was how that all kind of happened, to be honest with you. And I just never really followed up with it. But yeah, everything cool? Everybody good? Don't get foam tapes for your car. Yeah, so my quote last week here he goes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I caught that. I didn't mention. Yeah. So just to let you guys know what I'm dealing with as well, what Zach at Galactic Toys mentioned was A typical container, full-size 40-foot truck container, used to cost around the $5,000 mark. We used to pay about $1,500 for an LTL from Asia to us for a pallet of 1 ton of books, 2,000 US pounds roughly, was about $1,500. It's about $10,000 right now for us. And he's paying $40K for a 5K shipment. We don't know. I mean, it's bullshit, you know, and they're stuck in the port. It's just greed at this. I understand if it's $7,500 or if it's now $8,000, like I get that part of it. It doesn't have to be $40,000. That's bullshit. You know, you're killing businesses, and that's not right, in my opinion. You're hurting businesses at the core. Like, we can't function. So anyhow, you'll hear me cry about that. I'll cry in my sleep, cry off camera. I'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. But what I think what we'll do is for my small company, for the truth of the matter of shipping international for the books coming up for everybody with a pre-order, you'll probably see what will happen on your end from the customer end. Won't be any different, but its origin will be different for us. Usually what we'll do is we'll bring in all of them, import them into us, and then we'll handle North America separately, Asia separately, and Europe separately. But I think we might have to just do it all out of one location as individual shipments. Yeah, it's rough, man. I can't imagine the monies you guys have to spend for some of this stuff. It would scare me. But anyway, how many tons is a full? Yeah, I don't know what the tonnage would be, Dan. What they can handle, I'd imagine, probably pretty heavy. I know you can put cars and trucks inside one of, whatever you can fill in. There's usually no weight restrictions on surface freight, whether it's rail or by boat. I don't think there's really, truthfully, unless you're dealing with like metals and stuff like that. But just for signed copies. Someday, my friend, someday. That would be a wonderful, I think, two hands in all seriousness, that would be a wonderful prize. If you know what I mean, like to run a contest, like a really special contest, and really do like a hardcore weathering, like a really upper level 6-month contest, and then maybe the winners, kind of like they get a hand delivered. We'll all meet in your city and we'll have dinner and hand you, that'd be a cool prize. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't think it had weight restrictions. Nothing for collect. Yeah, I was gonna say it would probably, like, unless you're moving like metal, billet metal around or something, blocks of raw steel or whatever. I don't know how. I mean, it probably doesn't go in a container anyway. So. Yeah, I was going to say probably 40, 50 tons. Yeah. So 30 tons, that's a lot. They hold something like 63 cubic meters. Yeah. But anywho, fun to talk with you guys. I could go on for a while. Another reasonably ridiculous price. Yeah, it is. It's starting to affect us directly, John, quite a bit. In fact, I'm holding all the book prices for now, but I don't have a choice. 2022, there's going to be a bump. And the sales going on through by the way, we're running. Oh yeah, I'm going to have to, that's why this week's going to be a little bit critical for me. The end of August is kind of the cutoff for a lot of this stuff. Yeah. If you're on the fence about pre-orders and stuff like that, if you want the prices that they're at right now, definitely grab them while you can. Book price, all the links are in the description for ordering stuff. That's how you support the company for now. The channel is all book purchasing. We'll do Patreons probably. I'm probably going to, if I can get it towards the end of September. I thought I was going to get it in August. August blew by. Fuck off. Yeah. Anywho. I think we caught everything. We got everybody's questions. Good stream, chill stream. Just hanging out for a minute before we sign off. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for all the birthday wishes. Really nice reposting question. Arnell, how would you simulate heat discoloration on the blade if you wanted to weather that? So it's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for you right now. I'm going to think about that a little bit. I would probably airbrush the heat discoloration. So that's what I was trying to think about, Arnell. If you're still Flandez, if you're still listening, do I do a heat version of this, like a heat sword that this thing gets hot and it cuts through with the heat? Or do I do like just basically a battle axe sword like in Iron Blood Orphans where it's just a battle weapon, which is how I kind of played this one for me versus a heated device. But like an exhaust on an aircraft, airbrushing your color tones, if you're, just study them a little bit. They're blues and purples and yellows and reds and oranges, and then kind of lay that in with an airbrush. You can even mask it off if you wanted to get real precise. But anyway, did I miss any other questions in there? Live comment. Yeah, I'll give you guys on Tuesday a heads up what I'm doing. I brush and all of that. We got that cool dollar stores. We get those types of brushes. Yep, you can get some good cheap stuff at places in the live stream. All right, guys. Question. Yeah, I think we're good. All right, everybody. It's carbonation. Is that what that is? You're a smart man, two hands. You know all the good stuff. You know a lot about nothing. Yeah, you guys good. You guys have a good night. I appreciate everybody coming in. Yeah, thank you, Zach. Yeah. Contact me via email. We can talk in more detail for sure about stuff. But yeah, if you guys wanted something early or right now, we could get some in stock stuff out of Europe to you guys. But actually, everything coming for the future is gonna have to go that way for a while. You're welcome on the stream. Hopefully, this was informative. This is kind of just the breakdown process, the fundamentals. There's some good commentary in this to go back through. You're welcome, Clinton. How are you? And you and Nog and TC and everybody. You guys have a great Monday. Everybody else have a great week coming up. You're welcome, Sylvain. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Just got home too. If Bryn, yep, you got it. And I'll send you an email too, Bryn, just to chat with you and say hi and everything. Thank you for the candy. So check videos on knife making. You can see heated steel real well. Yep. Yeah, I would. And that's, so I was trying to determine if I want to heated this one out or if I want to go like blunt instrument or how fresh I wanted to keep the look of this thing. And I'd kind of airbrush some things in. And then, like I said, I kind of have to redo it a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit of it, but there's actually some metallics in there. Catches the light. We'll see. We'll come up with something. Back to patrol. Yep. Be safe. Be good. We'll talk soon, everybody. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Tommy McDaniel, you're welcome. You're welcome, guys. I am going to sign off. Peace out. Thank you. Take care.